Part 55. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 573. The 5 best were released, and Angzi alone occupied 4 of them. After all, he took 42 shots in the last game. That was half of the 76ers' total shots. Among them, the scores against the sky and the amazing goals are countless. And the top name of the 5 best is naturally Angzi's lore. In the last 5 seconds, at the bottom corner, 1 to 2 backs to protect the ball. With 2 seconds left, Angzi dodges Kawhi Leonard and Dan with a reclining range of about 45 degrees. Niglin's interference made the ball go in. This is a lore goal. In its sense, it is very different from other goals. Because of this goal, the 76ers won the game, but even if you don't mention its significance, just talk about the difficulty of this goal. It's enough to make it the top of the top 5 daily goals in the finals. The goal was too difficult. The strong shot from backwards, or the strong shot against the defense of 2 people, actually scored. It is really a bit against the sky. After the goal is scored, it gives people the feeling that this ball is a good one. Fairy ball. A ball that only gods can make. Therefore, while many people are paying attention to Angzi's super god level data, the release of today's 5 best has made people pay more attention to Angzi and all aspects of Angzi. Watching the replay of this game, I really don't know it. I was shocked when I saw it. In this game, almost every ball in Angzi was played abruptly against the defense. It's too strong. The Spurs' various double teams can't limit him. In terms of pure strength, Angzi is already the first person in the league today, right? Indeed, the offense and defense are excellent. Needless to say, the defense. Angzi can gain a foothold in the league in the first 2 seasons. It depends on defense. This season, Angzi's offensive evolution speed is really terrifying. Jump shots, step backward jump shots, emergency stop jump shots, breakthroughs, layups, almost omnipotent. This is called a kaleidoscope on the offensive end. In terms of offensive skills alone, Angzi hasn't used the European step very much. The other uses are very skilled. The offensive end play is so varied, no wonder it is so difficult to defend. With 64 points, defying lore, multiple records, and many NBA passers-by fans, they began to pay attention to Angzi. Because of one game, there were countless more fans who turned to Angzi Road. At this moment, Angzi was extremely excited to win the next game. Not only because of this victory, but more importantly, he broke at least 2 system-recognized records in this game, that is to say, he can get the right to upgrade at least twice. After entering the system, there is no more words in the system upgrade, because the system has been upgraded to a perfect state, and there is no need to upgrade again. As soon as I entered the system, a window popped out first, and after the golden light flashed, the honor pool interface appeared. After the tiebreak with the Heat consumed all 5 points, the first 2 games of the Eastern Conference Finals and the Finals only accumulated less than a quarter of the glory pool. This time, after breaking the record in a row, the glory pool is obviously going to accumulate it quickly again. Ding, the host broke the record for the number of hits in a single game in the NBA playoffs. Ding, the host broke the scoring record in a single game of the NBA playoffs. The system popped up 2 more prompts, suggesting that Angzi broke 2 NBA records in the last battle. The system did not continue to pop up. Obviously, Angzi knew that the system did not recognize the record of the finals. However, 2 records in a game and 2 upgrades are also extremely important for Angzi. For the glory pool, Angzi is not so important. Even if 3 records or even 4 records are upgraded, Angzi will get 1 at most. Time-saving glory pool bonus. And these 2 upgrades, the more important thing is obviously the attribute bonus after the upgrade. Angzi can use this to further improve himself. Clicking off the 2 prompts, the glory pool interface shook rapidly, glowing blue, and quickly filled the 2 glory pools, and when the third glory pool, it moved a little toward the full pool, and finally accumulated to the point of 2 plus 1.5. Angzi sighed deeply and touched off the interface of the glory pool. There are only a little more than 2 glory pools, and there is no need for him to pay too much attention. The next upgrade is the most important. Sure enough, after clicking the honor pool interface, the system immediately popped up a new prompt. Ding, congratulations to the host, I got 2 chances to upgrade attributes. After clicking on this prompt, a series of introductory instructions appeared. Perfect Jersey System Upgrade Instructions. The upgrade of the Perfect Jersey System is the same and different from the upgrade of the Damaged Jersey System. The same point is, an upgrade that breaks the league record, you can upgrade any attribute to 99 full points. The difference, the skill attribute may become a skill book. After reaching 99 points, it can be promoted to a personal stunt through a second upgrade. Angzi saw the second one, a personal stunt. Skill attributes that have reached 99 points, or can become skill attributes, can be upgraded to personal stunts through the second upgrade. Regarding personal stunts, Angzi understands that this is an extremely skydifying skill through the feelings and experiences during this period of time. Now, Angzi's retreat jumper is his most assured offensive technique. After all, it is a personal stunt, and its power is very different from other offensive techniques. Angzi thought for a while, and didn't hesitate. At least one of these 2 upgrade opportunities must be used to upgrade a new personal stunt. He clicked on the upgradable skill attributes, and jumped out a few attributes that can be upgraded to personal stunts. Skill attributes that can be directly upgraded to individual stunts include, backward jumper attributes and layup attributes. Seeing the 2 attributes listed in the system, Angzi had nothing to hesitate. He directly chose a fallback jumper. Ding, congratulations to the host, you have obtained a full value skill attribute backward jumper, please name it. It's time to name it again, and this is also the time for Angzi to use her ingenuity. He held his chin and thought for a while, sometimes frowning, and finally thought about it, thinking about the nouns of kung fu in Chinese martial arts novels and the nouns of ninjutsu in Japanese anime, but he didn't find a particularly suitable one. In the end, he was eager to upgrade, and in a fit of anger, he chose a name casually desperate admiration. Meaning, Angzi's backward jumper will make all defensive players desperate, because after Angzi's backward jumper, they can't interfere with Angzi, they can only watch Angzi's backward jumper scoring, falling into endless despair. It's quite appropriate to think about it this way. Thus, Angzi's second personal stunt was set. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the full value skill attribute Desperate Admiration, the legendary attribute of the jumper, turning over and falling back, one shot to decide the winner. Angzi exhaled, the upgrade was successful. The reason why he chose to shoot backwards is naturally because he values the ability of the backwards jumpers to break double teams. Looking at it now, the backwards jumpers break through to a personal stunt. Then no matter how the Spurs double teams him, he can use the backwards jumpers, unlimited go to shoot. However, thinking of unlimited shots, Angzi thought of her own physical problems. In the last game, Angzi made 42 shots, a lot of times. It should be said that he has shown extremely strong physical fitness, but this is far from enough. In the last battle, Angzi was still affected by a certain degree of physical fitness. So, after thinking about it carefully, Angzi gave up the layup attribute that was not very important, and he chose to upgrade his physical fitness instead. A white light flashed, and Angzi's second upgrade was also successful. Ding, congratulations to the host, for gaining an ability attribute bonus physical strength, with an attribute value of 99. The upgrade was successful, and for the second time, Angzi chose physical fitness. He wanted to have a physical fitness attribute of 99 points, which is considered to be a historical level physical fitness attribute in the NBA. 2 upgrades, Angzi made the best use of it. A personal stunt level back jumper should be the most needed skill attribute for Angzi at this stage. He can use this to break through the Spurs' infinite double teaming. The physical attributes will provide Angzi with the physical fitness for a crazy shot. In the next battle, he will continue to be crazy. The 2 attributes have been upgraded successfully. Angzi's current attribute upgrades are as follows. Angzi's current skill attributes include, Thunder Shot, 3 points, 90, Death Coil, Steel, 95, Flower Butterfly Step, Breakthrough, 96, Kobe Style Back, 90, Parker Style Emergency Stop Jumper, not full value, 87, Great Shift, Reverse Step Jumper, 100, Desperate Back, Reverse Jumper, 100. The ability attributes that Angzi currently has include, Investment Attribute Bonus 85, Single Defense Attribute Bonus 99, Off-Ball Attribute Bonus 85, Ball Control Attribute Bonus 83, Physical Attribute Bonus 99, Low Position Attribute Bonus 70, Passing Attribute Bonus 81, Assisting Defense Attribute Bonus 99, Hook Attribute Bonus 60, Layup Attribute Bonus 99. Before the start of Game 4 of the finals, Evo Clark was busy again, and he was busier than ever before. The first is Angzi's sneaker contract. Because of the super-level performance of the previous war, Angzi conquered almost everyone. Numerous sneaker manufacturers flocked to it. Adidas even directly stated that they would help Angzi build a personal brand. They saw the field of basketball shoes. The hope of catching up with Nike. Evo Clark called to ask Angzi's opinion, but in fact, Angzi's real personal brand sneakers are already in the preparatory stage. However, since Adidas directly proposed to help Angzi build a personal brand, Angzi gave Evo Clark the authorization to let Evo Clark went to Adidas to discuss cooperation. You go to Adidas to talk about cooperation, mainly in the technical field. Evo Clark also has the same idea, but he mentioned the requirements that Adidas may make. It is definitely agreed to talk about cooperation with Adidas, but Adidas will definitely make some requirements. Maybe they will not propose to merge your company into Adidas, but they are definitely going to take a stake in your company. N11 nodded thoughtfully on the phone. Do you want to buy shares? It is not impossible to buy shares. He thought about it and agreed, but the shares cannot be given too much. Yes, but the shares cannot be too many. The maximum is 30%. It is better to talk about 10%. Okay, there are also some endorsement contracts. Would you like to see it now? Angzi shook his head. No, Evo, let's talk about it when I finish the finals. Evo Clark had guessed that Angzi would say that, so he was not surprised at all. After nodding, he said, that's okay, don't bother you to rest, endorsements or something, I will push it until after the finals. Dismissed Evo Clark, Angzi also directly rested. Abby's belly has gradually bulged. The two of them did not sleep in separate rooms, but they already slept in separate beds. The main reason was that Angzi was too strong and too heavy. It would not be good to sleep if you turn over and press Abby, so in the master bedroom 2 beds were placed. Abby was sleeping on the big bed, she was still reading, and Angzi was naturally asleep on the small bed. Angzi hung up the phone, and Abby asked curiously, what? Are you going to cooperate with Adidas? Angzi climbed onto the big bed, touched Abby's belly, and said, yes, Adidas technology is also good, although it's not as good as Nike. It's not much different in the field of sneakers. If you can get their technical support, my sneaker brand will start even higher. How much are you going to invest in sneaker brands? Angzi thought for a while. $500 million plus the value of my personal image, occupying most of the shares, it shouldn't be a big problem. Abby nodded. Well, it shouldn't be a big problem. Okay, go to bed, tomorrow is the 4th game of the finals. Abby pushed Angzi, and Angzi nodded and climbed back into the crib. No words for a night. The next day, the fourth game of the finals began at Wachovia Arena. Because of the 76ers' victory in the last game, the victory in the fourth game of the finals has become confusing. The 76ers have the ability to beat the Spurs. The last game has been verified. Perhaps some people are worried about Angzi's physical strength, but there is a 2-day rest period between the two games of the finals. No matter how heavy Angzi's last game was, this game can basically resume. But before this game, the Spurs urgently prepared for the game and made further changes to the defense. We need to put more restrictions on Angzi and implement more double-team defenses on him. Danny and Kahi, your mission is to double-team Angzi inside Tim or Thiago. Pay attention to contain Angzi. As long as Angzi takes the ball and assumes a singles posture, he will immediately double-team him. Don't give him too many opportunities for singles with the ball. Popovich also noticed that in the last game, Angzi used a series of individual singles to defeat the Spurs defense. In this game, the Spurs defense must be better, and it is best to be able to do it without giving Angzi opportunity for singles with the ball. Before the start of the fourth game, Popovich once again emphasized the defense of Angzi. The fourth game, for Angzi, is destined to be an unprecedentedly difficult game. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen Sanbuletnji. Chapter 574. The fourth game of the finals at the Wachovia Arena began, and the two teams' main players all came out. At the beginning of the game, Angzi felt the Spurs' defense against him, and the intensity of defense was even higher than the previous game. As long as Angzi gets the ball, there will be a double team immediately, and if Angzi makes a tough breakthrough, the Spurs will even use a crazy three-person trap to stop Angzi. This is a complete meaning of not giving Angzi any singles opportunities. However, in the opening, Angzi ignored this level of defense, constantly taking the ball from the middle distance, and then facing the two defenders, making a strong backward jumper. It's just that this style of play is still a lot lower in terms of offensive efficiency compared to the changeable offensive style of the previous battle. And the consumption of physical energy is huge. So after 7 or 8 minutes of play in the first quarter, the score continued to be anxious and Angzi began to increase his passing. With the Spurs constantly double-teaming himself, passing is obviously the better choice. In this way, the game is a bit like the first two games of the finals. In the first two games of the finals, Angzi held the ball to attract a pincer and then pass the ball, but the 76ers lost in those two games. In the second quarter, when the Spurs' offensive became more and more fierce, Angzi continued to withstand defensive shots and scored. The game continued until the beginning of the third quarter, and the two teams were still tied. But from the beginning of the third quarter, Angzi left the field to rest. The Spurs seized the opportunity, a wave of fast-breaking counter-attack. The opening of the third quarter played a 17:8, opened the point difference in one fell swoop. In the third quarter, the 76ers suddenly collapsed. Although Angzi reappeared in the middle of the third quarter, the Spurs' fast break has already felt like the momentum is overwhelming. And this game the 76ers' outside shooters collectively missed. James Anderson seemed to be completely unable to find the position of the basket. In this way, Angzi's appearance was also in vain. A two-pointer from Manu Ginobili extended the point difference to 2 points. Then Angzi also scored, reducing the point difference to 9 points again. But Danny Green returned a three-pointer when he turned around, and then double-teamed to prevent Angzi's back jumper. Although the speed of the score expansion was very slow, the Spurs still got a 15-point lead by the end of the third quarter. Then in the fourth quarter, the Spurs took advantage of the 76ers' weakness to further expand the points difference. The game was played until the end of the game with 4 minutes left. The 76ers were already 22 points behind. Brett Brown put Angzi back on the field after a 2-minute rest, hoping to chase points, although it seems that the 76ers have no hope of winning the game. After Angzi played, he held the ball from the outside and forced a kick against Kawhi Leonard. After holding the ball with his back, he leaned back and shot. The basketball crossed a perfect parabola and fell into the basket cleanly. Nice goal, the difference is reduced to 20 points. The goal is very simple. Although it has no effect on the result of the game, but in this game, we have to lament that Angzi seems to have improved again, and his back jumper looks sharper. Director Zhang and Jiayu continued to praise Angzi. Regardless of whether the 76ers lost in this game, the last person in the 76ers team that should not be criticized after the game is Angzi. So far in this game, Angzi has taken 33 shots, hit 13 goals, scored 34 points, and scored another 30 points. But obviously, compared to the previous game, Angzi's efficiency in this game is not so high, or even a bit low. The number of shots is the same, but the scoring rate is a lot worse, and the shooting rate is not even 40%. The score is therefore a lot worse. The reason for all of this is because the Spurs blocked Angzi's defense in this game. They almost left Angzi with no room for singles. In this way, they can face the opponent's double flanking infinitely and make various strong shots. The efficiency is naturally not too high. Coupled with the inaccurate shooting of the 76ers outside shooter, it is not surprising that the Spurs led by 20 points in the final stage of the game. With 3.5 minutes left in the game, the 76ers played another wave of offense. Angzi continued to make a strong shot, but failed to make a hit this time. With 34 points on 34 shots, Angzi's efficiency in this game is indeed not good. And then, the Spurs attacked and scored 2 more points and the point difference widened to 22 points. Then, when the 76ers served in the backcourt, Nkaway handed the basketball to Angzi, ready to start another offense. The game time came to the 9th minute of the 4th quarter, that is to say, the final 3 minutes are left before the end of the game. Angzi had just received the basketball and was about to lean on Kawhi Leonard with his back. When he played back singles again, a system that had never appeared in the game suddenly appeared in front of Angzi. Ding! There are 3 minutes left in the game, and the host is 22 points behind. Does it consume a glory pool and get a 200% attribute bonus for the next 3 minutes? Below a prompt, the option of yes or no appeared. Angzi froze for a moment, and then understood that this may be one of the multiple ways to use the glory pool, but the last 3 minutes has a 200% attribute bonus. Angzi hesitated for a while, and finally chose no. There are 3 minutes left in the game. If you count as one offensive round in 16 seconds, there are up to 12 offensive rounds, divided into 2 teams, each team is 6 times. Even if these 6 offenses, Angzi shot all 3 points. And if every shot must be made, it is only 18 points. Even if the Spurs can't get a point in the next 3 minutes, as long as the Spurs honestly drag out the offensive time, the 76ers will not be able to pull back the 22-point lag. Therefore, Angzi chose no rationally. As a result, the 76ers eventually lost the game. There is no doubt that they are 22 points behind in the last 3 minutes. Unless there is a miracle, it is impossible to complete the comeback. At 119:102, the Spurs finally won by 17 points. In the last 3 minutes, the 76ers recovered 5 points, but this did not affect the Spurs' victory, and Angzi made 2 more shots in the last 3 minutes, hitting twice. The personal data of this game is also frozen. 15 of 36 shots, the shooting percentage at the last moment brushed back more than 40%, scored 38 points, another high score, although the efficiency is not high, but combined with the first 3 games game. Someone exclaimed, Angzi is performing the most powerful individual performance in the history of the finals. 43 points, 4 rebounds, 9 assists, 4 steals, 2 blocks in the first game, 34 points, 5 rebounds, 12 assists, 2 steals and 2 blocks in the second game, 64 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals and 2 blocks in the third game. Blocks, plus the game's 38 points, 3 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals, and 1 block. In the first 4 games of the finals, Angzi averaged 44.75 points, 4.5 rebounds, 8.5 assists and 3.0 steals, regardless of winning or losing. 1.75 blocks are completely phenomenon-level data. But helplessly, the 76ers are already behind 1:3 in the finals. At the end of the game, Kawhi looked a little frustrated. Throughout the playoffs, his performance rarely shined. When it came to the finals, he didn't even pass the game. There were 4 games in the finals. Kawhi's hit rate is only 34.5%, which is very bleak. At the end of the game, Wachovia was booed all over, and Kawhi lowered his head. Obviously, he started to blame himself. Kawhi's performance in the regular season was outstanding. At the beginning of the season, he was the second child of the 76ers. Even if Pau Gasol joined later, he was the third offensive choice in the 76ers, but in the playoffs, in some games, Kawhi's offensive performance was even worse than James Anderson on the bench. Not to mention the defensive end, Tony Parker often staged a good play of passing Kawhi throws or emergency stop jumpers in one step, which seems to be a big hole on the defensive end. Frustrated, Kawhi fell into complete self-blame, and 11 walked over and patted him on the shoulder. "Michael, we haven't lost yet, so cheer up and play the next game." Kawhi listened to Angzi's comfort, and he nodded. The 76ers lost the 4th game. The defeat of this game meant that the Spurs got the match point in the finals. They are only 1 game away from the O'Brien Cup victory. The 76ers are defeated at home, and the Spurs are in sight for 3 consecutive championships. Angzi can't support a single tree, the Spurs are in sight. Team basketball wins, there is no future for it alone. After the game, the media began to report the results of the 4th round of the finals. Without exception, after the Spurs won another game and got the match point, the direction of the media reporters changed. After all, the Spurs were only 1 victory away. It's time to win the O'Brien Cup, and in the case of a 3:1 lead in the finals in history, there has never been a comeback. Therefore, after this game, the well-known gambling company BPI gave the latest Spurs 76ers winning probability. At the beginning of the series, BPI believed that the Spurs had a 60% chance of winning and the 76ers had a 40% chance. After the first 2 games, the Spurs' chances of winning soared to 80%, and the 76ers only had 20%. Then, in the third game, the 76ers won, the Spurs' chances of winning fell back to 60%, and the 76ers' chances of winning naturally became 40%. Now, after the Spurs have won the 4th game and the series has a 3:1 lead, BPI believes that the Spurs have a 97% chance of winning the championship. In other words, they believe that the Spurs have a 97% chance of defending, and the 76ers come back. The probability is only 3%. Even with this probability, ESPN ridiculed it. ESPN expert Henry Abbott jumped out again. He thought, BPI is too high for the 76ers. There has not been a 1:3 turnaround in the history of the finals. For example, the 76ers obviously can't do this, so I think the reasonable probability should be that the Spurs will win 99.9% and the 76ers will come back 0.01%. The probability of a comeback is negligible. For the remaining 3 games of the finals, BPI believes that the 76ers odds of winning in Game 5 are only 2%, and the odds of winning in Game 6 are even higher, reaching 8%, while the 76ers in Game 7 won. The odds of the ball are a little lower, only 7% left. All in all, after losing the 4th game of the finals, no one is optimistic about the 76ers. And BPI's prediction of the next 3 possible games was once again mocked by Henry Abbott. Don't be funny, there are 3 games left in the finals. Obviously there is only 1 game left. Is there anyone who thinks the 76ers can win at the Spurs home court? Don't be naive. The odds of the 76ers winning in the 5th game, 0.01%, no more. After the 76ers lost the 4th game, Henry Abbott behaved like a quick-wit villain, constantly mocking the 76ers on his social networking site. But this kind of ridicule is very unpleasant, because no matter how the 76ers lose, at least the 76ers can reach the finals, which is already a success. Therefore, many fans of the 76ers yelled at Henry Abbott's social networking sites, and some neutral fans also persuaded Henry Abbott not to laugh at the 76ers under various tweets posted by Henry Abbott. But Henry Abbott obviously didn't mean to stop. He checked his tweet and sent another tweet, "The 76ers are a loser, they are being abused by the Spurs, why can't I laugh at them? Some people say that Angzi should not be criticized, oh no, this is just a joke, why can't Angzi be criticized? Are you all the kind of fans who only look at statistics? Indeed, Angzi's statistics are beautiful, but you can't win the ball. What's the point?" Scarlett just finished her work. She started to tweet while lying on the sofa. After a while, she took out her second mobile phone, boarded a small tweet, and then quickly flipped through it. Up. This Henry Abbott. Is he a dog shit? Scarlett saw Henry Abbott's various tweets, and couldn't help getting angry. He hurriedly sent a tweet, "Henry Abbott, dare you bet with me? For the next game, I bet on the 76ers to win." Scarlett directly attacked Henry Abbott, and then waited for an answer. Henry Abbott would naturally ignore the betting request of a Twitter account that seemed to have no fans, so Scarlett waited for a while, but still did not wait for the result. Scarlett was a little angry, she probably guessed the reason, and in a fit of anger, she turned on her tuba, then she found her own trumpet and forwarded it. After the big forwarding, the popularity suddenly came up. There are also a large number of fans who helped aid Henry Abbott, and issued a variety of provocative words. "Henry Abbott, are you persuaded? I don't dare to accept the $500,000 bet. It seems that you are just a keyboard man." Henry Abbott looked at so many provocative words, he was also a bit unconvinced. Only $500,000, his half-year salary, he can still get this little money. And after thinking about it carefully, Henry Abbott really couldn't think of the next game, what the 76ers can rely on to win. So Henry Abbott replied to Scarlett's tweet and agreed to bet. Scarlett is very confident. She believes in Angzi and believes that the 76ers will not fall like this. But for the 76ers, a loss in a home game gave the Spurs a match point, which means they must make more changes. For the next game, Angzi also considered a lot. He felt that he could accept that the team fell behind in the 4th quarter, but the point difference should not be too great. Angzi has already put his mind on the 2 glory pools. 3 minutes of glory chi bonus, if it is a dozen points behind, he still has the confidence to catch up and turn defeat into victory. At the same time, Scarlett has reached an agreement with Henry Abbott and made an appointment to show up in the AT&T Arena on the day of the 5th game of the finals, watch the game, and cash out the bet. At this time, Scarlett's identity also caused a lot of speculation. Who is this Angzi Iron that can make a heavy bet of $500,000? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 576. On June 15, 2014, US time, the 5th round of the finals returned to San Antonio and was held at the AT&T Arena. Before the start of the game, who was the Angzi Iron Scarlett with a shot of $500,000, has become a question in many people's minds. Many people have made speculations, most of which point to a Hollywood actress, Scarlett Johansson. The reason is that Scarlett's name is actually Scarlett's English name, and after the last game, Scarlett's Twitter was reposted by Scarlett, which is somewhat obvious. Most people are quite sure that Scarlett is Scarlett, but there are few people who think that Scarlett may be a familiar person of Scarlett. It may be Scarlett's sister or younger brother, or maybe it's Scarlett's agent. But no matter how you guess it, it is better to wait until the moment when the game starts to see if Scarlett will appear on the scene. With 2 hours left before the game, local San Antonio fans arrived at the arena one after another and took their seats on the sidelines. Henry Abbott also came to the game early, took a selfie with his new fruit phone, and posted it on Twitter, indicating that he had been there as scheduled. There was a faint smile in Henry Abbott's selfie. From the smile, he could see some pride. He obviously thought he was going to win. After Ed got Scarlett, Henry Abbott waited. He also wanted to know who this Scarlett was. If it was Scarlett, it would be great. If you want to come to the Spurs to win this game and win the championship, you can also get a lot of topics. After all, on the other side is Scarlett Johansson, a Hollywood star. As for the $500,000, although it is also very important, it is not worth mentioning compared to my topic and attention. Scarlett also quickly responded to Henry Abbott. She posted a location showing that she was in the AT&T Arena at this time, but there was no selfie. Scarlett still did not reveal her true identity. This caused a lot of attention to who Scarlett was. The person was anxious. Henry Abbott was also one of them. He was looking forward to Scarlett being Scarlett. After Scarlett posted the location, Henry Abbott looked around, hoping to find some clues. At this time, the game is about to begin. The players of the two teams came out and started warming up on the sidelines. The Spurs fans all cheered. The Spurs are currently leading 3-1. As long as this game is won, they can win the championship trophy at home. The Spurs fans were ready, and they showed their enthusiasm. The Spurs management also prepared the championship t-shirts and champagne in the locker room, and everything is ready. As predicted by BPI, the Spurs are confident in winning this game. Win the victory in this game and win the third consecutive O'Brien Cup at his home court. Before the game, the Spurs shouted similar slogans. The same goes for the league. The O'Brien Cup has been shipped to the AT&T Arena, ready to hold the championship celebration after the game. The fifth game began with the increasing cheers of the Spurs fans and unlimited expectations. The starting lineups of the two teams took off their training uniforms and gradually walked to the center of the court. At this time, everyone found that the 76ers starting lineup had undergone earth-shaking changes. The 76ers actually changed their starting lineup. Mkaway didn't start, Angzi came to the point guard, and the shooting guard was James Anderson, small forward Jack Lauder, power forward Paul Gasol and center Omarasi Grams. In this game, the commentary combination sent by Turner Sports is naturally the trump card trio. Charles Barkley, Kenny Smith, and Shaquille O'Neal are now. After Kenny Smith introduced the 76ers starting lineup, he immediately analyzed it. The adjustment of the 76ers starting lineup is obviously dissatisfied with the performance of Mkaway in the finals. They let Angzi play the point guard, more to control the ball, and let James Anderson appear in the starting line. The purpose is also very obvious. Strengthen the defense of the outside line, strengthen the three-point firepower of the outside line. James Anderson changed the starting point for Mkaway. The purpose of this change was too obvious. Before the game began, Popovich also quickly ordered the Spurs to pay attention to the 76ers outside shooting. Then, the game officially began. Indeed, judging from the 76ers starting adjustments, the main change may be that after James Anderson played, the 76ers had an extra outside shooting point. Pay more attention to this shooting point. For the Spurs, it is enough. At the beginning of the game, the 76ers got the ball and Angzi started to control the ball from the outside. In the absence of Mkaway, the ball can be concentrated in Angzi's hands. For the Spurs, they have to do it. Considered whether to double Angzi from beginning to end. With the first goal in the opening game, the Spurs naturally chose a double team without hesitation. As soon as Angzi got the ball, Kawhi Leonard posted it, and Danny Green on the other side also doubled over. Angzi controlled two moves, and then, to be safe, he took the ball directly with his back. Taking the ball with their backs, Danny Green and Kawhi Leonard immediately squeezed up. The two obviously did not want to give Angzi too much space to take shots. This kind of defense should be said to be the ultimate. Therefore, Angzi did not forcefully turn around and shoot. The game has just started, and the hands are still not hot. If you force the shot, there is an 80% chance that it will be iron. An 11 chose to pass the ball, Mkaway was not there, the 76ers had more outside shooters, so an 11 passed, an opportunity was immediately passed. James Anderson rushed to the corner, the Spurs had no time to stop the omission of this position. After Angzi passed the ball to Pau Gasol crossed the corner, an excellent opportunity appeared. James Anderson was very resolute, he had nothing to hesitate, because he knew that Brett Brown let him start this game just for this kind of shot. Therefore, the next second the basketball came to his hands, he was thrown to the hoop. With a scream, the basketball got into the hoop obediently. The 76ers bench was boiling, James Anderson's open three-pointer. Brett Brown raised his arm, and his adjustment worked from the beginning of the game. James Anderson's open three-pointer. This three-pointer gave the Spurs a blow. After James Anderson made the starting lineup, the 76ers had an extra three-point shooter on the perimeter. Perhaps they should consider whether they want to be resolute. Double-teaming Angzi. If they really want to double-team Angzi forcibly, then big empty opportunities like this will continue to appear in the future. Charles Barkley analyzed the 76ers' offense. He believes that after James Anderson made the starting lineup, the Spurs' crazy double-teaming against Angzi must be considered. Then, the Spurs attacked. The Spurs' offense, their offensive speed is very fast, very targeted offense. Tony Parker broke into the inside, shook James Anderson, stopped a jumper, and scored. Beautiful. The Spurs scored the same offense, and Tony Parker scored a goal. Tony Parker waved his shooting hand, and the Spurs fans in the ATT arena immediately burst into a huge cheer. An 11 looked at Tony Parker on the side. After thinking about it carefully, it seems that the most threatening point for the Spurs in this round of the series is the only Tony Parker who is still at its peak in the GDP. So an 11 thought about it and beckoned. James Anderson switched defenses with himself. Next, the 76ers played another wave of offense. After Angzi held the ball in the backcourt and quickly rushed to the front court, the Spurs were still resolutely double-teaming. This time, Angzi still chose to pass the ball. The basketball was given to Pau Gasol, who was inside, and Thiago Splitter was about to block Gasol's passing route. But Gasol chose to shoot for this ball, shot a mid-range jumper, a scream, and the clear netting sound meant that Angzi's pass made another score. Next, the Spurs' quick offense failed to score, Omer Asik grabbed the rebound and handed the basketball to Angzi. When playing the Spurs, the 76ers actually don't need to pay too much attention to the rhythm. It's not that the Spurs' ability to control the tempo is not strong. On the contrary, the Spurs' ability to control the tempo is too strong. The 76ers don't have to worry about the rhythm. The Spurs are arguing, because they can't compete. This Spurs, it can be said that they want to be fast, fast attack counter-attack is very sharp, slow if they want to be slow, pressing the rhythm and playing positions can also suppress your breath. Therefore, the 76ers offense seems very arbitrary, directly handing the basketball to Angzi, and then Angzi to attract the defense, as long as there is a chance, pass or shoot. After the first two double teams leaked out, the Spurs seemed to hesitate to double-team Angzi. Angzi moved quickly. He seized this opportunity and directly used a quick pick and roll from Pau Gasol to throw off Kawhi Leonard's defense and rushed in. An emergency stop jumper scored another 2 points. As soon as the Spurs hesitated to double-team, Angzi's scoring was simple. This shot made Popovich feel the danger. He stood up, not eager to call the first timeout of the game, but he waved his hand to signal Tony Parker to continue speeding up, and the Spurs wanted to use speed to defeat the 76ers. But the faster the Spurs offense, the easier it is to go wrong. Tony Parker broke through quickly to attract the defensive and scored the ball. Kawhi Leonard caught the ball from the middle distance and shot, but was directly interfered by Angzi, who turned to defend and rebounded. Also won by Pau Gasol. The Spurs failed to score again. Popovich was anxious. After the 76ers launched the fast break, he waved his hands, "Block him. Block Angzi. Double team him. Don't hesitate." In the most urgent time, Popovich decided to let the team resolutely double team Angzi. Angzi rushed to the front court, and Danny Green and Kawhi Leonard surrounded him. Angzi rushed forward, and after further attracting the defense, he made a cross ball. Everyone turned their heads in surprise and found that on the other side, Jack Lauder had already received the basketball. He received the ball from outside the three-point line with a 45 degrees angle on the other side. Shot. All the Spurs fans on the sidelines opened their mouths, praying for the ball to hit the iron. But it's useless, and Jack Lauder has a good feel in this game. With a scream, 3-pointers are in the net. The goal is scored. Jack Lauder hit a 3-pointer. 10:2, the 76ers actually played a wave of 10:2 at the beginning, too strong, Kenny Smith couldn't help but exclaim, and Popovich had already called out from the sidelines. Pause, he must make adjustments. By the time of the timeout, Charles Barkley also opened his mouth to analyze the wave. The 76ers in this game are different from the 76ers in the previous battle. With this momentum, the 76ers are really likely to take the next game. Yes. The 76ers started the game too smoothly. The most important thing is that their outside three-point shooter was misfired in the last game. In this game, these three-point shooters have regained their feel and the Spurs defense. It's not that easy. Yes, the game has just been played for less than 3 minutes. I think the probability of the 76ers winning this game has reached 60%. There are three-point threats from James Anderson and Jack Lauder, and the Spurs are against Angzi. It's hard to be so resolute. Shaquille O'Neal and Kenny Smith also expressed their own views. Henry Abbott, who was on the sidelines, was dissatisfied with the 76ers opening lead. He felt that the 76ers had caught the Spurs by surprise with his sudden change. After Popovich adjusted, the 76ers couldn't play so easily anymore, and the score would definitely come back. Of course, thinking about it this way, Henry Abbott was still very nervous. He suddenly found that the 76ers were in the lead. His $500,000 seemed not so safe. That was his half-year salary. On the other hand, he is also looking for Scarlett. On the field, the game restarted. After the timeout adjustment, the Spurs also stabilized on the offensive end, no longer eager to make an offensive shot. After a continuous front-court transfer, the Spurs found an excellent opportunity. Tony Parker and Duncan's pick-and-roll cooperation attracted the defense. On the other side, Kawhi Leonard cut the penalty area and got an unmarked opportunity. Tony Parker immediately dividing the ball, Kawhi Leonard received the ball, took advantage of his own momentum, took a big step, and jumped up. With a loud noise, Kawhi Leonard smashed the basketball into the hoop. With a bang, the AT&T Arena was cheered and cheers rang out. The Spurs fans all stood up and cheered. At this time, on a seat in the second row near the technical desk, a graceful girl in a hat still sat in her seat and did not move at all. Such a move aroused people's curiosity. Is she the Scarlet? Many people looked around, hoping to see the face of this hot-looking beauty, but they were too far away to see clearly, including Henry Abbott, who was sitting behind the basket on the other side. Although he was anxious, he was too far away to see, and he was helpless. But soon, with the 76ers offense, Anzi broke through with the ball, and the Spurs defense couldn't cope with it. Anzi seized the opportunity and rushed into the penalty area. The ATT arena was silent. At this time, the hot beauty stood up and cheered loudly. In the quiet ATT arena looked very abrupt. However, this made Henry Abbott sure that this beauty must be the Scarlet, not her. Who else would cheer for Anzi in the away game in San Antonio? Then, Henry Abbott looked forward to looking at the big screen above the arena. He felt that the staff who controlled the camera on the spot would definitely give this hot beauty a shot. Not only Henry Abbott, but also more people are looking at the big screen above their heads. On the court, after Anzi celebrated, the camera flickered, and it was aimed at Scarlett, who was still not seated on the sidelines. Henry Abbott was short of breath, and in the next second, he exclaimed, "It really is her." Super Role Player Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 577. Scarlett really appeared, the camera flickered, and Scarlett's exquisite face appeared on the big screen above the arena. There was an exclamation at the scene. It turned out that the fan who was crazy to help Anzi speak on Twitter was Scarlett. Hollywood superstar Scarlett Johansson. Henry Abbott was a little excited. He felt excited when he thought that it was Scarlett Johansson, the big Hollywood brand, who was betting against him, and it was Scarlett Johansson who Kevin Durant wanted to drink bath water. If the Spurs win this game, Henry Abbott will not only get $500,000 equivalent to his half-year salary, but also a lot of attention. For a reporter who wants to improve his reputation, a bet, such gains are enough to make him feel excited and excited. Scarlett Johansson completely ignored the strange gazes of the Spurs fans on the sidelines, and after loud cheers, sat down. I didn't expect Scarlett Johansson to be an Anzi die-hard fan. This is big news. Kenny Smith in the commentary was also a little surprised, and Shaquille O'Neal, who is good at tricky players, continued with a smirk. I really don't know what crazy things Kevin Durant will do after hearing about this. At this time, thinking that Kevin Durant's fans are not a few, Durant's Twitter will be full immediately. What is your goddess is about to be snatched by Anzi, and what else is going to ask Anzi for help? REI's bath water, and the replies of such teasing are endless. The game continued. After the timeout by the Spurs, the first thing was that their offense was more stable than before. The slow-paced offense had a high success rate. Tony Parker broke the ball, Danny Green wanted to take the ball, shook Jack Lauder, after the breakthrough, attracted the defense and then passed the ball towards the inside. Thiago Splitter easily put the basketball into the hoop. At 12:6, the Spurs have stabilized the gradual collapse of the opening game. As the game continued, the 76ers played much more smoothly in this game, and Anzi also rarely felt relaxed. He gradually rarely made strong shots and split the ball when encountering double teams. The 76ers also played well. At the end of the first quarter, the 76ers led the Spurs by 4 points with 26:22. In the first quarter, Anzi scored 8 points, plus 3 assists and 1 steal. The performance was relatively flat, but the team's lead is a good thing for the 76ers. But starting from the second quarter, the Spurs, who are gradually entering the state, speed up. After all, the 76ers won't be fast. As long as the Spurs speed up, the 76ers will be a little bit overwhelmed. In the first half of the second quarter, Anzi continued to play, and the development of the game was somewhat unexpected. The Spurs opened the game directly and quickly attacked, and the new Marco Bellinelli shot on the ball, hit a 2-point, and narrowed the difference to 2 points. turned around and defended the 76ers offense, and then used the time difference between defending the offense and grabbing the rebounds to hit the 76ers with a wave of fast attack counterattacks and equalized the points difference. The Spurs speeded up suddenly and Brett Brown did not call a timeout. After all, the game had just begun. He didn't need to call a timeout immediately. He just waved from the sidelines to signal the team to pay attention to the offensive success rate and to control the rhythm. In the second quarter, Nkaway had already played because Angzi was also on the court. After halftime with the ball, he gave the basketball to Angzi. With Angzi holding the ball, the Spurs' defensive strategy has returned to the stage of resolute double-teaming. Because of Nkaway's presence, the 76ers missed a threatening three-pointer on the outside. Marco Bellinelli and Kawhi Leonard began to pinch Angzi at will. For this ball, an 11 did not choose to pass the ball. Unless it was a perfect opportunity, an 11 felt that it was better for him to make a strong shot. So after leaning on Kawhi Leonard with his back, Angzi shook for a while and jumped up and shot a jumper. Kawhi Leonard rushed forward, Marco Bellinelli took a step slower, raised his arm and watched Angzi avoid Kawhi Leonard's interference and threw the ball to the basket. The moment they landed, the basketball hit the net with a scream. The goal is scored. The 76ers regained the lead, and Scarlett stood up abruptly again, but this time she didn't dance, just clapped her hands, and then sat down again. Angzi didn't celebrate. The Spurs were the place where his career started after all. In the AT&T Arena, there can be limited celebrations, but too much celebration will not work. The Spurs then started offensive. Manu Ginobili, who was the guest point guard, dodged the defense of Francisco Garcia enchantingly, followed by a quick turnaround in Europe, and dodged Angzi's supplementary defense and rushed in. The inside basket succeeded. The score equalized. With the 76ers offense, Angzi turned around and jumped up suddenly after holding the ball to attract double teams, as if he was about to lean back and shoot again. Kawhi Leonard hurriedly rushed forward, Marco Bellinelli also jumped up in time this time, but in the air Angzi surprisingly threw the basketball into the penalty area. In the penalty area, it was Nkaway who was cut into the penalty area. Nkaway's performance in the finals was terrible, and this game fell to the bench. The Spurs naturally didn't pay much attention to the 76ers' third scoring point in the regular season. I didn't expect Nkaway to pass after coming off the bench. With his own running, he touched the penalty area quietly, and then received a pass from an 11. Angzi's pass was very soft and directly delivered to Nkaway's hands. After receiving the ball, Nkaway pulled up and dunked the basketball into the hoop. Nkaway is also close to 2 meters in height. He is considered a tall point guard. The dunk under the basket is not too strenuous. After he succeeded in dunking, he scored the first point of the game. And then, the Spurs had another wave of offense. Manu Ginobili broke through Europe. After attracting supplementary defense, it was a cross pass to Kawhi Leonard who also cut into the penalty area. Kawhi Leonard pulled up another dunk. The atmosphere at the AT&T Arena was brought to a climax. The score was tied again, and the next game was like repeating the process. The 76ers took the lead, the Spurs equalized, and Angzi continued to use his personal offense to get good scoring opportunities. For Henry Abbott, such a game looks very uncomfortable. He bet $500,000 in this game. Maybe for Scarlett, $500,000 is really nothing, but for Henry Abbott, this $500,000 is his half-life. Up. The game he prefers to see is that the Spurs spread the point difference in a wave, instead of constantly tying as they are now, and even the 76ers occasionally take the lead. In such a game, Henry Abbott had to stop his heart. Scarlett did not feel this way. On the one hand, for her, $500,000 is really nothing. On the other hand, the main reason is that even in the current game, Scarlett is very comfortable watching it because of the game. This is enough to satisfy her. In the second half of the second quarter, the score was still anxious. Seeing Angzi's physical fitness declined, Brett Brown hesitated for a while before replacing Angzi. After all, in this game Kawhi and Angzi played well with several goals. It seems that the game is in good shape. Brett Brown decided to hand over the game in the second half of the second quarter to Kawhi and Pau Gasol. But after the substitution, the game restarted, and the situation was different. The 76ers lost Angzi, the most threatening offensive point, and the Spurs' defensive pressure was greatly reduced. They immediately put defensive pressure on Kawhi. Then, within 2 minutes after Angzi left the field, the 76ers were overtaken by the Spurs, but they still struggled to maintain the situation on the court. But soon, the Spurs made a quick counter-attack, and after scoring a goal, they shot their momentum. A wave of 10:3 offensive climax extended the score difference to 8 points in one fell swoop. This wave of offensive climax immediately made Brett Brown a little anxious, and immediately called a timeout. Watching Kawhi and Pau Gasol slowly walked off the field, Brett Brown shook his head. Sure enough, the 76ers are now suffering from Angzi dependence. Without Angzi on the court, the 76ers offense immediately collapsed. Brett Brown looked at Angzi, who had just rested for more than 4 minutes, and waved his hand, and, "You go." Since the 76ers are suffering from Angzi dependence, the best way to solve the current disadvantages on the court is naturally to switch to Angzi. Angzi also had a rest for more than 4 minutes, and his stamina had recovered a bit. He was back on the line, but at this time, the Spurs were already 8 points ahead, and the situation was still slightly unfavorable for the 76ers. But Angzi didn't care. In this game, to be precise, he hadn't exerted much effort yet. In this game, before falling behind, the 76ers played very smoothly. There was no need for Angzi to exert any effort. But now, the team has come to the time when Angzi needs to come forward. During the timeout, Henry Abbott felt a little excitement and the Spurs started to take the lead. He felt that the 76ers were about to collapse. And seeing Angzi take off his training jacket and play again, Henry Abbott didn't care. He felt that the Spurs were beginning to exert their strength. This game, like the previous games, gradually lost suspense. After Angzi played a few muscles and bones, he received a basketball from the backcourt. Then, after half the time he held the ball, he began to direct his teammates to move. Brett Brown turned the lineup on the field into a lineup similar to that in the first quarter, with James Anderson and Francisco Garcia partnering on the wing, and Antoine Jamison and Cole Aldridge on the inside. But in fact, this lineup is still a bit different compared to the lineup in the first quarter. The main gap lies in Antoine Jamison. Jamison is inferior to Gasol in terms of the quality of screens and the threat of personal offense. Therefore, when Angzi held the ball from the outside, the Spurs did not double-team. When Angzi crossed towards the inside, Boris Diaw rushed over and cooperated with Danny Green to complete an attack against Angzi. Angzi chose to pass the ball. Now the 76ers have 3 three-point shooters on the field. Angzi feels that the choice of passing is better. Maybe he can pass the three-pointer. After the ball was passed, it was indeed a three-pointer opportunity, but James Anderson, who made 3 three-pointers in the first quarter, missed the shot. And 11 didn't care if he missed a three-pointer. No one can make every shot. After the Spurs grabbed the rebound, the 76ers quickly retreated, but after the Spurs offense was unstable in the first quarter, it is now very stable. Manu Ginobili took the ball and rushed into the post. Angzi moved laterally to make up the defense, but Ginobili passed the ball back. After giving Boris Diaw to the high post, Boris Diaw made another lateral move and handed the ball to Danny Green, who ran to the top of the arc without the ball. With the help of Diaw's cover, Danny Green threw off Jack Lauder, made a three-pointer, and made a successful hit. The Spurs played another wave of successful tactics and scored 3 points, pulling the difference to double digits in one fell swoop. Henry Abbott followed the full audience of Spurs fans and cheered. Although halftime was not over, it seemed that the Spurs won the game and won the O'Brien Cup. It was only a matter of time. An 11 glanced at the scoreboard above his head. He once again held the ball from the backcourt. With this ball, an 11 did not hesitate to play a very fast single, leaning on Danny Green, and before Boris Diaw's double teaming came, directly won. Turned around, leaned back for a jumper, a desperate personal stunt, and just shot it. Danny Green tried his best to interfere, but Angzi was a premeditated shot. He aimed at the basket early, and the basketball was undoubtedly caught in the net. Angzi scored a goal and the point difference was reduced to 9 points. Then, with the Spurs offense, Manu Ginobili hit a mid-range shot and re-extended the point difference to 11 points. Angzi did not show weakness either, turning around and making another fallback jumper. The point difference returned to 9 points. And then, the Spurs continued to attack successfully. Inside, Boris Diaw turned and hit the basket. Angzi turned around and used his back to hold the ball to attract the defense. After the point, he assisted Francisco Garcia and hit a three-pointer. The point difference became 8 points. In the next round, the two teams struck iron one after another. In the end, at the end of halftime, the 76ers and the Spurs played 58-50, and the Spurs still led by 8 points. In the third quarter of the game, Angzi played in the opening stage and continued to help the team stabilize the situation. However, in the second half of the game, Angzi left the field to rest and the Spurs took advantage of this opportunity to open the point difference to 15 points in a wave. The 15-point lead was maintained by the Spurs until the fourth quarter. Knowing that with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, the Spurs still maintained a 15-point lead. Henry Abbott's heart is almost out of his chest. There are only 5 minutes left before the Spurs win the game and his bet with Scarlett. With a 15-point difference, Henry Abbott felt that there was no surprise in this game. It was not that the difference was safe, but the situation on the court. The 76ers had no chance to win the score. Henry Abbott looked at Scarlett Johansson in the distance, and he found that the Hollywood superstar still looked calm, sitting in his place. Henry Abbott snorted coldly, "Huh, Nyangpi, when the game is over, I see if you can be so calm." After thinking about it, Henry Abbott felt that it was not good enough. In the hustle and bustle of the ATT arena, he took out his mobile phone and sent a tweet, "Spurs Championship." Then I took Scarlett and Scarlett's tuba in the back, and asked Scarlett when he would cash out his bet. Obviously, although the game was not over yet, Henry Abbott already felt he was determined to win. At this time, Angzi on the field is still struggling, 15 points difference, there is still a chance. Angzi also has a big hole card in his hand. Super Role Player Author, Yuen Sanbuletnji. Chapter 578. The time of the game was passing, and the 76ers still did not give up the game. Angzi scored a three-pointer from the outside to help the team narrow the gap to 12 points. Then, the Spurs counterattacked. Tim Duncan made a mid-range rebound and shot, and the point difference was re-expanded to 14 points. Then, with the 76ers offense, Angzi looked up at the time. The game was about to enter the final 3 minutes. He is looking forward to the response from the system, with a 14-point difference, and in the last 3 minutes, it is not impossible to chase. But Spurs fans on the sidelines, including Henry Abbott, don't think so. The game is about to end. Only the last 3 minutes are left. The Spurs lead by 14 points. Although Nzabiao scored a three-pointer, he was 14 points ahead. With 3 minutes of playtime, it was a safe one. The score, which means that the Spurs are only 3 minutes away from the championship, and Henry Abbott has only 3 minutes left to win the bet. On the court, Angzi took control for a while, and waited for the system's prompt. Ding. There are 3 minutes left in the game, and the host is 22 points behind. Does it consume a glory pool and get a 200% attribute bonus for the next 3 minutes? Angzi did not hesitate, he was waiting for this moment, and directly clicked yes. Then, when the attack time was less than 10 seconds, an 11 felt full of strength. Glancing at the basket, I always feel that I can shoot at will, and I can hit casually. But Angzi didn't have any impulse. With 10 seconds left in this attack, he accelerated and broke through Kawhi Leonard's defense and rushed in. Kawhi Leonard didn't feel that Angzi's singles was different from the previous singles. The moment Angzi broke through, he greeted Danny Green's double team, and then he was ready to entangle Angzi. But the next second, when he turned around to entangle Angzi, he felt nothing. After Angzi received a 200% bonus, his speed suddenly accelerated. The sudden eruption caught Kawhi Leonard off guard. It was too late to turn around and chase him in shock. Angzi rushed into the inside. Duncan, as the Spurs insider's hoop protector, naturally rushed out and pushed in front of Angzi. Angzi stopped immediately, facing Duncan, and threw the basketball toward the hoop in a horse riding and archery posture. With a beep, the referee's whistle blew. Angzi's shot caused Duncan's foul, and then everyone turned their attention to the basketball. The basketball tipped over the hoop, and finally tipped in. Goal in. 2-1. The 76ers bench suddenly boiled, but it was the Spurs fans in the AT&T Arena. It was quiet, with only a few noises left. Obviously, Angzi's shot was beautiful and scored, but when the game was less than 3 minutes, they did not pay much attention to the 76ers scoring, unless the 76ers can score consecutively to restore the suspense of the game. Now Spurs fans are more concerned about the winning award ceremony that is likely to come next. Angzi stepped to the free throw line and easily added a penalty. Tim Duncan raised his head and glanced at the point difference, which was 11 points away. Old Duncan didn't care. This point difference is still very safe for the Spurs. But when he turned around to participate in the offense, Duncan clapped his hands. We can't be careless yet, do our offense. Tony Parker, who held the ball, nodded, and after rushing to the front court with the ball, the Spurs started to cooperate with a horn. After Thiago Splitter single shifted, Tony Parker quickly rushed towards the inside. Angzi defended Parker, and entangled him without hesitation. Parker saw that he had no chance and did not stick the ball. He turned around and divided the ball to Duncan in the high post. Duncan took 2 steps with the ball and made a hand-to-hand cooperation with Danny Green, who was swiftly cutting through the air on the other side. After Nigglen passed the screen, it was an emergency stop jumper and shot the basketball. Danny Green is already familiar with this kind of cooperation, and the screen throws off the defender's jumper without any ambiguity. With a scream, it hits cleanly. The Spurs scored and the point difference came to 13 points, which was another point narrower than the previous 14 points. The hit of this ball naturally triggered the tsunami cheers of the AT&T Arena Mountain. They were so excited. Danny Green's goal further ensured the Spurs' victory. Angzi watched coldly. He received the ball from the backcourt and directly controlled it to the front court. The 76ers lineup at the decisive moment of the fourth quarter was the lineup that led the Spurs in the first quarter, so the Spurs were not daring to double-double Angzi blatantly. Before Angzi showed signs of a breakthrough, the Spurs still let Kawhi Leonard defended Angzi alone. Angzi glanced at the basket. Time is waiting. He came with a sudden cross-step breakthrough. After shaking Kawhi Leonard, he then took a step back, outside the three-point line. Jump shot. On the other side, Danny Green was late, but Kawhi Leonard jumped up, trying to interfere with Angzi. But with the bonus of the glory pool, Angzi's state was really good enough to blow the watch, throwing a three-pointer, completely ignoring the defense that Kawhi Leonard had lost. With a scream, the original noisy AT&T Arena, sounded a few exclamations. In the commentary booth, Kenny Smith shouted, 3 points. Beautiful. Anzi scored 6 points in a row, and the 76ers still did not give up the game. Shaquille O'Neal on the side glanced at the score. There are 10 points left, and there are 2.5 minutes left in the game. If Anzi can continue to feel like this, everything is possible. Duncan on the court also really felt the crisis. In this finals, Duncan has already felt the strength of Anzi, an old teammate. In terms of personal ability alone, Anzi, who has undergone a playoff transformation, may already be the strongest in the NBA. In order to defend this victory, the Spurs need to be serious. Popovich also stood up from the sidelines and allowed Anzi to score 6 points in a row, which is not a good sign. He frowned. Although he did not call a timeout, this appearance made many people understand that the game is actually far from over. The Spurs fans on the sidelines, after a few intermittent exclamations, also became slightly nervous. After another wave of the Spurs offense began, they shouted and cheered for the Spurs. As long as the Spurs can continue to score, even if Anzi hits more three-pointers, the result of the game will not change. Henry Abbott was also nervous for a while, but as a reporter, he analyzed the situation on the court. And then let go of his heart. However, with the current offensive state of the Spurs, it is still too difficult for the 76ers to defend against the Spurs. Anzi's three-pointer is just a futile struggle. With the Spurs offense, Anzi continued to face Tony Parker. Tony Parker is neither impatient nor impatient. He knows very well that the more critical the time, the less anxious it is. Facing the defense of Anzi's long arm blockade, Tony Parker called for the cover, and he accelerated, and wanted to throw away Anzi and break into the inside. Anzi naturally bypassed the cover and continued to wrap Parker. Parker then made a score. This score is very important because Parker has dragged away Anzi's defense. Next, the outside Spurs small cooperation easily opened a space. This time it's Duncan. He received the basketball. Wanted to take a shot in the middle distance, the inside Asik threw it out. Duncan immediately worshipped Buddha, and after shaking Asik, he rushed to the inside and got a more secure scoring opportunity. Holding the ball with one hand, Duncan rushed towards the hoop. This goal is going to be scored. Henry Abbott knew that if the goal was scored, the Spurs would have no problem with victory. But in the next second, his pupils shrank rapidly. Because, at the most critical time, in the most critical position, a big yellow hand appeared. The ATT Arena exclaimed in disbelief, and with a snap, the basketball in Duncan's hand flew waywardly over the arena. Block. Pretty. Anzi again. Still Anzi. This shot is really the key. At that moment, countless Anzi fans shouted loudly from all parts of the world. With more than 2 minutes left in the game, a key block means a lot. The basketball flew out of the sideline, and the Spurs fans looked up at the offensive time. With more than a second left, they suddenly realized that the situation seemed a bit awkward. In more than a second, the Spurs can only make strong shots. If you are lucky, if you don't make it, the 76ers will have an excellent opportunity to reduce the point difference to single digits. There are more than 2 minutes left in the game. At the time, the single-digit point difference, the lagging side definitely still has a chance of comeback. So they really got nervous, including Henry Abbott, who frowned. But Scarlett on the sidelines was very excited. Regardless of the full Spurs fans, she stood up and shouted, "Anzi! It's beautiful! Damn the Spurs!" An 11 in the field naturally heard this shout, but he has no time to pay attention to it now, with a cold face, still with his long arms open, ready to interfere with the Spurs sideline serve. The Spurs were looking for a chance to score directly, but Kawhi Leonard's intention to serve from the sideline was too obvious. Just after the pass, an 11 suddenly jumped and destroyed the pass. The basketball flew to the other side, and the 76ers and Spurs immediately launched a fight, but soon, there was a buzzing sound, and the timer buzzed. The Spurs' 24-second offensive round is over. With a bang, the AT&T Arena was full of exclaims, and the 76ers successfully defended this wave of offense, although the process was a bit difficult. With 2 minutes and 03 seconds left in the game, the 76ers served directly and an 11 took control of the front court and chased for 10 points in 2 minutes. An 11 chose a quick decision, rushing to the front court and directly hitting a three-pointer. An 11 made a three-pointer directly. Time is running out, he can only fight like this. A little impulsive, Angzi's three-pointer. Can you make it? There are different opinions among the commentators. As for whether this goal can be scored, only an 11 knows. Kawhi Leonard stretched out his long arm to interfere with the ball, then turned to look at the basketball. The basketball slammed into the hoop and looked like it hadn't made it. The Spurs fans just wanted to cheer, with a scream. The basketball bounces into the box. At this moment, countless people are crazy. Goal scored. Even by karma. Another three-pointer. Angzi broke out. 9 points in a row. Only 7 points left. The progress of the game is a bit unexpected. Angzi broke out, consecutive three-pointers. And the key block just now? The game seems to have resumed suspense. With less than 2 minutes left in the game, a 7-point difference. If the Spurs don't get serious, maybe a magical comeback will be staged. Angzi was like a cold-blooded killer, still silent, turning around to defend. Pau Gasol was very excited. Although he was not the one who accomplished all this, but once again seeing the hope of victory, Pau Gasol still felt a surge of excitement in his heart. Come on. Defend this wave of offense. We want to win. Pau Gasol replaced Angzi's duties and began to cheer. The 76ers who see the hope of winning are naturally united and want to guard the next wave of offense from the Spurs. Popovich still did not call a timeout, but at this time he has started pacing back and forth on the sidelines. For the Spurs, they still have the lead. The situation is not that bad, but for this attack, the Spurs must score. Up. With continuous outside cooperation, Angzi is still ready to make up for defense at any time. However, after the Spurs made 2 screens and cooperated, Danny Green shot directly from the outside. The Spurs fans all stood up at once, including Henry Abbott. But, with a bang, Danny Green's three-pointer actually hit the iron. No entry. Henry Abbott's heart was beating violently. He wanted to rush to Danny Green now, grabbing Danny Green's ears and yelling, "You mum! You can't score such a critical ball. Want to torture me to death?" And more people are paying attention to rebounds, and there is a call for rebounds in the AT&T Arena. However, Angzi shot out from the diagonal stabbing and swept the basketball from the top of everyone's head. Quick break. After consuming a glory pool from Angzi, a quick word went through the final few minutes of the decisive battle. Angzi must score as quickly as possible. After all, the difference and time behind are not waiting for anyone. Rushing to the front court, Angzi didn't try to make a three-pointer anymore, but speeded up and rushed inside. Staring at the basket, Angzi felt that he needed a goal that could boost the team's morale. After stepping into the inside line and stepping on the free throw line, Angzi stepped heavily on the floor, and then jumped into the air. With a 200% bonus, Angzi's bounce is naturally much better than before. After rushing into the free throw line and jumping for one step, Kawhi Leonard also jumped up. He saw Angzi's momentum and his heart knowing that it was difficult to prevent Angzi's ball, he thought about pulling Angzi down from the air, so he couldn't let Angzi complete this dunk from the free throw line. The two collided in the air. Kawhi Leonard stretched his arms and pressed down, trying to press an 11 down. The referee's whistle sounded directly, which was an obvious foul that could not be made. But Angzi was not suppressed by Kawhi Leonard. Leonard obviously underestimated Angzi's momentum. Bang! Kawhi Leonard fell straight to the floor like falling leaves. With a loud noise, Angzi violently slammed the basketball into the hoop. The ATT arena was quiet in an instant. All Spurs fans opened their mouths in disbelief. In Turner Sports commentary, Charles Barkley all jumped up. This was the first time in their commentary career. They were so excited and excited one step inside the free throw line. Everyone dunks. Too cruel. Too cruel. Kawhi Leonard tried to pull Angzi down, but he failed to succeed. Instead, he was knocked over. It was almost inhuman resistance. The strongest dunk of the century, the dunk of death, can't compare to him. The two commentators of CCTV paid more attention. They calculated how many points Angzi had scored in a minute or more starting from Angzi's 2-1. A 2-1, 2 3-pointers, plus this dunk, in 1 minute, Angzi scored 11 points in a row. There was also a block and a rebound, exploding. In Chinaland, Angzi's dunk was like the fuse. Numerous Angzi fans and Chinese basketball fans went crazy. They stood up, as if watching the game on the spot, cheering and screaming madly. Too strong. Angzi is too strong. It will always be Angzi, and it will always be Angzi to stand up. Victory. The 76ers win. Angzi stepped to the free throw line and continued to hit the free throw accurately. 12th point. The point difference is reduced to 4 points. An extremely dangerous point difference. Popovich walked to the sidelines and called a timeout. Kawhi Leonard glanced at Angzi, who had not celebrated even after completing a historic dunk, and silently turned around and walked to the bench. Angzi did not celebrate, but his teammates were already crazy. This slam dunk was completely an actual dunk in history, regardless of the degree of appreciation, difficulty, or brutality. In addition, this ball has a deeper meaning. The morale of the 76ers, because of this ball, has reached the highest point. With a 4-point difference and more than 1 minute of game time, the 76ers still have a chance to win, but that is their last chance. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 579. After a timeout, the Spurs attacked steadily. Tony Parker assisted Thiago Splitter, and the inside line lay up against a seek. The point difference became 6 points. With the 76ers offense, there is 1 minute left. Angzi feels the endless heat brought by the glory pool, and there are only 6 points left. Angzi knows that this victory is about to be decided. Scarlett Johansson raised the mobile phone in her hand. Since Angzi entered the frenzy, she has been shooting with her mobile phone. Her sixth sense told her that perhaps the last few minutes of this game will be the most exciting of Angzi's career. For a shocking 3 minutes, she had to take a complete picture of the last few minutes of the game. Angzi rushed to the front court with the ball, a cross step, swayed Kawhi Leonard, and Danny Green on the other side hurriedly hit it. The Spurs are a little surprised at Angzi now. As soon as Angzi holds the ball and puts on a breakthrough posture, they immediately choose to double team. Danny Green's flanking shot was a bit sloppy, leaving James Anderson's open space. James Anderson opened his hand for the ball. Everyone thought Angzi was going to pass the ball. After all, James Anderson was an absolute big open opportunity. But Angzi believed in herself too much, or that, after the bonus of the glory pool, Angzi only believed in herself. Facing Kawhi Leonard's defense, Angzi glanced at the basket and pulled up another three-pointer. Kawhi Leonard stretched his arms and interfered in front of Angzi. Angzi makes a strong shot against defense. This shooting choice. Charles Barkley just wanted to question Angzi's shooting options. After all, James Anderson on the other side is absolutely open. But halfway through, the basketball hit the backboard with a bang, and then went into the hoop. Go in. It's so amazing. Charles Barkley was stunned. Anxi made a defensive shot and still made it. At this time, he really wanted to scold his mother. The Spurs fans on the sidelines had the same idea, and the goal was scored again. Still a three-pointer. There are only 3 points left. Compared with Spurs fans, Henry Abbott almost knelt down. He knelt down toward the Spurs, begging the Spurs not to do this anymore, not to give Anxi a chance to score. In this situation, his heart attack it's really going to be committed. Looking at the 3-point difference, Henry Abbott really felt that his $500,000 was about to leave him. Anxi's three-pointer hit, and the domestic text live broadcast platform ran a wave of 666. Anxi went against the sky and scored 15 points in a row. The game continued, and the Spurs offense became more careful. Now they found that they could not withstand Anxi's impact. If they want to win this game, they must do better offensively. Danny Green got a chance with the outside pick and roll screens, but this chance was not good. He didn't dare to shoot directly, but kept the ball and continued to move inside. The Spurs are starting to hit the rim. After all, the closer the offense is to the rim, the safer it is. But after Danny Green broke through James Anderson's defense with the ball, he was defended by Anxi. Anxi stretched out his hand, and when Danny Green broke through quickly, he snapped and cut off the basketball directly. The crisp sound that cut off the basketball was transmitted through the loudspeaker behind the rim to the audience on the sidelines, especially Henry Abbott, who was sitting behind the rim. Hearing this crisp sound, the whole person almost collapsed. He opened his eyes and looked into the court. Sure enough, Anxi had already cut off the basketball and rushed to the front court with the ball. For the chance to fight back, Henry Abbott knew that the points difference had to be narrowed again. Sure enough, Anxi rushed to the front court with the ball, a dunk, and 2 points succeeded. The point difference was suddenly reduced to 1 point. After Anxi steals, one-stop dunk dunks. There is only 1 point left. And 47 seconds left in the game. No one could have imagined that with 3 minutes remaining in the game, the 76ers were still 14 points behind. Now, the difference is only 1 point. They only spent 2 minutes. Reduced the 13 points difference. On the CCTV side, they continue to pay attention to Anxi's personal performance. Achieved 17 points in a row, and a key block and a key steal. In this battle, Anxi really has to go further. On the field, Anxi continued to return to the defensive end after steals and fast breaks, with only 1 point left. With his current state, the 76ers will win this game. On the sidelines, the NBA staff and Spurs staff who had been preparing for the championship celebration had already involuntarily stopped their work because the game had resumed suspense. And looking at the current momentum of the two teams, the Spurs are even going to lose. Scarlett Johansson on the sidelines was very hilarious. Sure enough, her sixth sense was right. An 11 ran away. At this moment, no one seemed to be able to stop an 11's eruption. Vicky called a timeout. With only 1 point left, every subsequent attack is very important. After the timeout, Vici replaced Manu Ginobili and Thiago Splitter. The field became a lineup of 1 big and 4 small. It seemed that the Spurs were going to focus on the offensive end. The Spurs are still consuming time. After all, they are still 1 point ahead, and the energy consumption will consume a little time, and will not leave the 76ers more offensive time. The benefits of Manu Ginobili's appearance soon became apparent. The 76ers' perimeter defense became difficult to do well. Anxi made up the defense. The Spurs made a pass and found another opportunity. It was Manu Gino who just came out to score. Billy, he took advantage of Anxi to cover Duncan, received a pass from the other side, a European layup succeeded. The point difference returned to 3 points, and there were 25 seconds left in the game. The situation is a bit serious. In 25 seconds, the 76ers played a wave of offense, and even if Anzi scored another three-pointer, it would only tie the score. For the Spurs, they even have a chance to kill, because even if the 76ers use 24 seconds, the Spurs will have 1 or 2 seconds left to make the final shot. In other words, the best outcome is a tie in regular time and enters overtime. Brett Brown called a timeout, and Anzi frowned when he left the field. Now, the 76ers have to make a choice, whether to choose to run out of time and drag into overtime, or to attack quickly and leave enough time to commit a foul. Tactics. Anzi thought for a while. His glory pool will only last for the last 3 minutes of the fourth quarter. When he enters overtime, not only will he not get any more bonuses, but he may even lose his strength. At that time, overtime will be even more impossible. 1. Therefore, after thinking about it, Anzi decided to attack quickly, and then adopted foul tactics. Anzi believed in his three-pointer. Coach, let's play a wave of fast offenses and solve the battle within the regular time. Brett Brown was stunned. He just wanted to say that it would be safer to add time to extra time, but now Anzi put forward a completely different idea. He was stunned. Anzi has made up his mind. He knows that only if the fight ends within the regular time, the 76ers have the hope of winning. Therefore, Anzi ignored Brett Brown's reaction and said directly, "Coach, just do it, leave the game to me, this game, we will definitely win." Brett Brown is not a coach who does not recognize the situation. He knows that Anzi is now strongly demanding to end the game within the regular time. There must be his own reasons. Therefore, he chooses to believe in Anzi. "Okay, no problem, then let's play a quick attack, and, it's up to you. We need a three-pointer, preferably a three-pointer." And 11 nodded, "Understand, rest assured, coach." The game soon restarted, and Vicky showed his shrewd move. This time out, he replaced Manu Ginobili again to strengthen the height of the inside line and strengthen the defense. The 76ers served from the sideline, and Anzi took the ball to the front court. The Spurs don't know whether the 76ers offense is fast or slow, so Kawhi Leonard on the defensive end is a bit hesitant. He wants to stick to Anzi, but is afraid of Anzi's breakthrough, but not close to Anzi, and afraid of Anzi's direct attack. The shot is simply a dilemma. But Anzi quickly let Kawhi Leonard end this dilemma, because he shot directly. The timer had only gone for 2 seconds, and Anzi took the shot. Kawhi Leonard stunned for a moment, then rushed forward. But it's still a step too late. The audience exclaimed at the ATT Arena, rumbling voices one after another. Anzi's three-pointer. He shot again. Scarlett on the sidelines jumped directly. She now blindly believes Anzi's three-pointer. She believes that Anzi's three-pointer will definitely make it. Huh. There was a crisp sound of wiping the net. Scarlett cheered, and the Spurs fans on the sidelines hugged their heads. And Henry Abbott, he had collapsed in his seat, glanced at the scoreboard, and muttered, "The Spurs still have a chance, the 76ers have no chance, the Spurs still have a chance, the 76ers have no chance anymore." It's Anzi hit a three-pointer. The difference was evened. This game is really exciting. Yes, Anzi scored 20 points in a row. Too strong. A shocking personal performance. Anzi scored another 40 points. No one could have imagined. When the game was 14 points behind, the 76ers could even equalize the points difference. The Spurs naturally called a timeout again. In the last 21 seconds, they still couldn't figure out what the 76ers thought. It was a foul to send the Spurs to the free throw line, then look for a chance to kill, or do their best to prevent the Spurs from dragging their last attack. Overtime. Therefore, after the suspension, Vicky made two plans. Then, the timeout was over, the Spurs served from the sideline, and 11 waved, the 76ers began to press the defense, put on a posture of ready to foul and send the Spurs to the free throw line. The Spurs served the ball and they naturally began to look for players with excellent free throws. In the end, the Spurs passed the ball to Tony Parker. But Anzi, the nearest to Parker, didn't foul in time, and Brett Brown turned around in a hurry. And, foul. The 76ers obviously pressed on. Why didn't they foul? What is Anzi doing? Anzi did not foul, he saw an opportunity and got Tony Parker. Death coil. This is Kawhi Leonard's stunt. Anzi decided not to foul first, he will try to grab the ball. James Anderson on the side wanted to rush up for a foul impatiently, but seeing Anzi entangled Parker unhurriedly, he suddenly understood something, stopped his footsteps, and turned to stare at the horse that was replaced by Vicky again. Nugeno Billy. Tony Parker crossed over and wanted to pass Anzi. But Anzi moved sideways and continued to stand in front of Parker. Parker turned around, trying to cross Anzi. Anzi also turned around and continued to haunt Parker. Tony Parker felt Anzi's difficulty, and he chose to pass the ball. But as soon as he passed the ball, an 11 flew out, and then shot the basketball in the air. Steal. Hold the grass. Hold the grass, hold the grass, hold the grass. Stealed. 666. Come on Spurs. Come on. Anzi lore. The moment the basketball was photographed by Anzi, a domestic text live broadcast platform immediately showed a series of barrage, but in fact, the barrage is still relatively small, because most people stood up and shouted. And then bit his tongue in surprise. Steal. Goodness. Anzi forced Tony Parker to make a mistake at a critical moment. The ball has changed. On the court, Anzi caught up with the basketball like the wind, then rushed to the front three-point line and stopped. Behind him is a group of Spurs players who are chasing back in shock. They were stunned. Vicky on the sidelines was stunned. Brett Brown did the same. He rushed to the sidelines to call a timeout, but Anzi waved and refused. Called a timeout? Let the Spurs use the timeout to think about how to handle the ball? Anzi is not willing. The 76ers didn't call a timeout, and the Spurs panicked. They didn't know the foul, or settled down to guard against Anzi's goal. So time is consumed. Vicky was very impatient on the sidelines. He yelled a few words and finally decided not to foul, let the 76ers finish this wave of offense and bet Anzi would not score this goal. Later, Kenny Smith said that Vich's decision was a dizzy decision, because he actually let Anzi, who was in a hot state, finish the attack. Isn't this a lore? The facts have also proved this. In the last 5 seconds of the game, Anzi dribbled the ball from the outside line under his crotch. Then suddenly a cross step, rushed into the three-point line. Then suddenly step back, and lean back. On the final goal, an 11 used all his available moves. Shouted in my heart, lore. The basketball flew to the hoop, with the prayers and expectations of countless people, rushed to the hoop. Huh. Hum. Accompanied by the crisp sound of wiping the net, it was the crazy beep of the timer. The goal is scored. Lore. With a bang, all the 76ers went crazy and rushed to Anzi from the sidelines. Great Anzi. He saved the 76 ERS, Krychowiak, who was explaining the game in Philadelphia, shouted excitedly. Lore. Lore. Unbelievable lore, Kenny Smith also shouted loudly. When he shouted the next few sentences, he was already hoarse. Anzi lore the game, the last 3 minutes, even 22 points. He is unmatched. 3 minutes and 22 points in the finals. This is a great personal performance. Maybe even if the 76ers lose the finals, the finals MVP should also be awarded to Angzi. He is too strong. Too strong, has always. I don't like the 76ers and Angzi's ESPN TV commentary. They also changed their tone. When they set the trip for this game, they shouted that Angzi deserves an MVP. This is indeed a great personal performance. To be continued. Super Role Player. Author, Yuan-san Buletinji. Chapter 580. 22 points in the last 3 minutes, 46 points in the game, plus 4 rebounds, 11 assists, 5 steals, and 2 blocks. Although no one cheered for him in the away game, he listened to his teammates screaming loudly, and an 11 also cannot help but feel surging. 1. Finally she mothers one. Angzi raised his arms and shouted hoarsely. The fans on the sidelines are already leaving, and because this is just an ordinary victory, the 76ers players also chose to leave after a brief celebration. Angzi, who had 22 points in 3 minutes, had to accept an interview from Turner Stadium reporter Doris Burke on the sidelines. And scored 22 points in the last 3 minutes of the last quarter. This is amazing. I want to know how you did it. Doris Burke also looked a little excited, acting like an Angzi fan at the moment, in her tone full of worship. Actually, I just made those shots, and 11 was also a little excited, but his answer was a little modest, and such an answer was a bit pretending to be seen in the eyes of others. Tracy McGrady was a guest on an ESPN post-match show. When he heard Angzi's answer, he smiled and shook his head. Angzi is too modest. Excessive modesty is pride. Those are not everyone can invest in it. His partner Bryn nodded, yes, just like your 35.13. It's amazing. Another guest, Bill Walton, suddenly asked, then Tracy, who do you think is more difficult for Angzi's 3 minutes and 22 minutes and your 35 seconds and 13 minutes? Tracy McGrady was asked all of a sudden, 35 seconds and 13 minutes, but it is impossible to meet, and 3 minutes and 22 minutes, it seems that the time is a little longer, but the longer time to get more points, the players need to grasp it more. Every chance to score. Therefore, McGrady felt, I think it is very difficult, and it is more difficult to be unable to distinguish who is more difficult. Bryn on the side also nodded and helped McGrady explain, 35 seconds and 13 minutes, that is a short burst of time. It takes 13 points in a very short time, but 3 minutes and 22 minutes is a long time. In a 3-minute burst, the difficulty is reflected in the fact that Angzi needs to score every goal. In 3 minutes, the Spurs can react a lot, adjust their defense, and do a lot of things. Therefore, the defense that Angzi needs to face is also very powerful. So, 35 seconds and 13 minutes is as difficult as 3 minutes and 22 minutes. An 11 ended the interview, and the explosion in the last 3 minutes made him consume a lot. However, out of the player channel, Angzi could not return directly to the locker room, because he met Scarlett Johansson again. And Scarlett happily called an 11. Angzi turned her head, saw Scarlett Johansson, scratched her head, hello, Miss Scarlett. And, I'm a big fan of yours, didn't you expect it? Scarlett blinked slyly, and then took out a poster, come on, sign me. No problem, an 11 took the pen and drew his name. Is this, in Chinese? Scarlett Johansson looked at an 11's signature and had some questions. An 11 nodded, yes, Chinese. Angzi's signature is only in Chinese. It does not mean that he can't sign English, but Angzi knows that he is a Chinese, and his signature must be signed in Chinese. There is no need to sign foreign languages. Scarlett also nodded, and then chatted with Angzi about the game for a while. The communication was very restrained, and there was no such enthusiastic chasing fans as Angzi imagined, and the situation of waiting for the whole person to post it happened. This made Angzi. He breathed a sigh of relief. he didn't want to have any scandals with Scarlett. Now, he has a family. However, a few reporters who passed by here started talking in a low voice. It's actually Scarlett, Kevin Durant is going crazy. Hey, who would say no, but Scarlett's figure is really good. Yes, Angzi is blessed tonight. Be quiet, don't be heard by them. The voices of these reporters were so low that Angzi could not hear him. After chatting with Scarlett for a while, Angzi returned to the locker room, took a shower and changed clothes, and followed the team back to the hotel. This disappointed many paparazzi reporters who followed Angzi. What they wanted to see was not an Angzi who returned to the hotel obediently and stayed with his teammates. They even wanted to see the hot scene of Angzi's private meeting with Scarlett. Unfortunately, Angzi did not give them this opportunity. Back at the hotel, Angzi turned on the phone, and naturally received a lot of text messages, all congratulating him on winning the game. Angzi made another phone call with Abby, and the two of them are considered old husbands and wives. There is no need for Angzi to explain what happened to Scarlett Johansson. The two just chatted about the game, and then asked Angzi when. Back to Philadelphia, after asking, I hung up. At the same time, Angzi's magic of 3 minutes and 22 points also triggered a heated discussion in the United States. Some people call Angzi the yellow-skinned Michael Jordan, but some people think that Angzi has surpassed Jordan at the level of personal strength. Everyone has everyone's opinions, but one thing is certain. Now, without mentioning Chinaland, the United States alone has set off an Angzi trend. Fans of Angzi have sprung up like bamboo shoots and walked to the street. In China, more and more fans are wearing Angzi number 7 jersey. After the game, another focus of attention was Henry Abbott. But as soon as the game was over, he slipped away in despair, and many people tried to find him, but they didn't find him. Including Scarlett. Thus, Scarlett, who had disclosed her identity, directly used her large aid to Henry Abbott and asked Henry Abbott to cash his bet. Henry Abbott was almost crying at this time, thinking, are you a Hollywood star, do you still care about the $500,000 with me? But the reluctant Angzi fans on Twitter left Henry Abbott nothing to do. He is a media worker. For his own future, he must honor the $500,000. So Henry Abbott sent a tweet asking Scarlett Johansson to send her bank account to himself, and he was ready to fulfill his promise. The day after the game ended, the headlines of the major media came out. Crazy for 3 minutes. The Spurs championship is gone. 22 minutes in 3 minutes, a magical personal performance in the finals. Multiple topics in World War I, Angzi scored 22 points in 3 minutes, and the Spurs lost the ball with an upset. Henry Abbott lost $500,000. Even Henry Abbott made the headlines because he lost the bet. After all, the victory was amazing. With 3 minutes left in the game, the 76ers were still 14 points behind. No one would have imagined that the 76ers would complete an amazing reversal in the last 3 minutes under Angzi's crazy scoring. Originally, Henry Abbott almost won the bet, but Angzi made a shocking runaway, scoring 22 points in 3 minutes and completing the comeback in one fell swoop. Henry Abbott had already obtained the $500,000, but it was gone, and he still had to lose $500,000. This plus and minus was $1 million. It is not surprising that Henry Abbott made the headlines. The 76ers finished the 5th game and the final score was tied to 2-3. The Spurs still have a chance to secure a victory in the finals in the next game and win the O'Brien Cup. However, after the 76ers won the 5th game, they are already united and the goal is directed at the tiebreaker. After the 76ers returned to Philadelphia, thousands of Philadelphia fans arrived at the airport to pick up the plane. Although the 76ers are far behind in the finals, in the minds of the 76ers fans, this 76ers has given them too much. They are also very eager for the championship, but if the team really does not win the championship, they will not blame the team, on the contrary, they will only console the team. And the fifth game of the finals, which was originally thought to be inevitable, had a magical reversal under Angzi's 3 minutes and 22 points. This is a big surprise for the 76ers fans. The game is back to Philadelphia, and they can cheer for their beloved team at their home court. Before the sixth game, the 76ers also had a meeting. Our goal is unquestionable, to drag the game into the tiebreaker. Angzi proposed a goal. Pau Gasol stood up and agreed, yes, we set a small goal first, which is to win the next game. In our own home court, we can't lose. But the problem now is that in the last game, if there were number 22 points in 3 minutes, we would still lose. Jack Lauder frowned. Brett Brown stood up at this time, so, we need to find the root cause of our suppression by the Spurs. Source. Yes, the root cause. Where is the main gap between us and the Spurs? And in what way do we need to resolve this gap? Brett Brown continued to make adjustments. Before the start of the sixth game, the 76ers' goal can only be victory. On June 17, 2014, US time, 2 days later, the sixth game of the finals began at Wachovia Arena. Before the game began, the Wachovia Arena flooded with 20,000 fans. Angzi played in full cheers and screams. A final, 5 games, Angzi has become the basketball in the minds of Philadelphians. The God. As a result, amidst the shouts of Angzi, Angzi in the audience, Angzi raised his right hand and constantly waved towards the sidelines. In this game, Jeff Hornacek brought Mrs. Hornacek and Abby to the scene to watch the game. Back to the first battle in Philadelphia, Scarlett actually continued to follow, and he was still on the sidelines with Abby, talking and laughing a few words. During Angzi's warm-up period, he ran over and said a few words. Then, the sixth game of the finals began. The interval between the sixth game and the fifth game of the finals is only 2 days. This is not considered the fatigue of the middle journey, so Brett Brown is still a little worried about the team's physical problems. Compared with the 76ers, the Spurs are more physical. The worries are not so deep. After all, what the Spurs are most proud of is the depth of their bench. No matter who pulls out from the bench, they can play the main force. In the previous few games, almost every time the Spurs opened the point difference, it was in the first place. In the third quarter of the second quarter, it is obvious that the source of the point difference in the third quarter of the second quarter is the gap between the two teams' benches. In this game, the Spurs starting lineup remains unchanged, and the 76ers have also continued the starting lineup of the previous game. Kawhi continues to appear on the bench, Angzi guest point guard, and other positions remain unchanged. The game started quickly, the two teams jumped the ball, and the Spurs won the opening first. In this game, the Spurs also came with the determination to win, because for them, the finals cannot be dragged on and must be resolved as soon as possible. If this drags on, and the tiebreaker really comes, everything is really possible. Now, in the sixth game of the finals, the Spurs still have an advantage, and people are very optimistic about the Spurs. After all, Angzi's 3-minute miracle is hard to come by. Angzi used these 3 minutes and 22 points in the last game. Won this game, then this game, Angzi can still break out like this? Obviously it's impossible. It's all said to be a miracle. How can it be staged every scene? And from the beginning of the game, the trend of the game seems to be developing as people expect. First, Tony Parker passed Angzi through Duncan's screen, rushed into the post and scored 2 points for a jumper. Then, the 76ers offense, the first offense in the opening, Angzi chose to pass after holding the ball to attract the flanking attack, but James Anderson's open three-pointer actually didn't make it. The Spurs grabbed the rebound and counter-attacked to the front court with a fast break. This time it was Duncan who rushed to the basket after receiving the ball in 2 steps. He succeeded in layup against Asik's defense and caused Asik's foul by the way. 5:0, then Angzi forced a shot against the double-team defense and missed 2 points. The Spurs continued to grab rebounds and another wave of counter-attacks. This time it was Tony Parker who scored again. Taking advantage of the 76ers' unsteady footing, they rushed inside and made a sudden layup and scored 2 points. The Spurs hit the 76ers 7:0 in the opening game, and immediately defeated the 76ers. Turner Sports commentary for this game is still a trio of Charles Barkley, Kenny Smith, and Shaquille O'Neal. Seeing the 76ers playing like this, Kenny Smith was a little surprised. The 76ers were beaten 7-0 by the Spurs in the opening game. After 2 games, are they going to give up? If this continues, the finals will end in 6 games. At the opening 0:7, Angzi frowned. In the few rounds after the game started, people did have a problem. They were messed up. This kind of chaos is not mental chaos, but rhythm of chaos. The evil consequences of Mkaway's failure to start appeared. Angzi was not good at controlling the rhythm. In the opening game, he was hit by 2 quick counter-attacks by the Spurs, and he didn't know the north, south, east and west. However, the 76ers' adjustments are also very fast. In fact, they don't need to make too many adjustments. The best adjustment is to continue to let Angzi hold the ball on the offensive end, and there will always be the moment to score. Angzi received the ball from the back court, thought about it, and directed the game directly on the court. "Paul, I will give you the ball later. You are in the high position. When I have a chance, remember to give me the ball." Pau Gasol was stunned, then nodded, and the high position agreed. He knew what to do. Immediately, an 11 rushed to the front court with the ball and made a gesture, and Omer Asik immediately withdrew from the penalty area. At the same time, Angzi passed the basketball to Pau Gasol, and actually played without the ball. The Spurs were dumbfounded, and Angzi was off the ball. How should they defend? Angzi didn't give the Spurs time to think. He came directly according to the established arrangement. After a quick lap from the inside, he suddenly ran back and then suddenly turned. Kawhi Leonard couldn't keep up. Next, Asik's cover appeared in front of Leonard. At this moment, he couldn't catch up with Angzi at all. After Angzi kicked off Kawhi Leonard 1 step, he received a pass from Pau Gasol. Danny Green made up from the other side and flew towards Angzi. But it's no use. With a scream, and the clear sound of wiping the net, the Wachovia Arena regained its enthusiasm before the start of the game. 3 points. In. Angzi broke the 76ers scoring drought. To be continued. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen Sanbuletinji. Chapter 581. Angzi's three-pointer helped the 76ers get the first point of the game. At 7:3, the 76ers were behind by 4 points. Soon, with the Spurs offense, Tony Parker continued to pass the outside screen. This time it was a double screen. After Angzi laterally moved to cooperate with Gasol to complete a pincer against him, Tony Parker with the basketball was passed to Duncan. Duncan made a 2-point shot from a long distance and made an easy hit. The point difference widened to 6 points. Immediately after the 76ers offense, Angzi used the same routine, using Pau Gasol as a bridge, running without the ball, and shooting the ball. But the Spurs were clearly prepared. Although Kawhi Leonard was thrown away by an 11 again, Danny Green rushed to an 11 in time. An 11 made a strong shot and hit the iron with a bang. Inside Thiago Splitter stuck Asik and grabbed the rebound. Then, the Spurs once again hit a wave of fast-breaking counter-attacks. In the counter-attack, Tony Parker caused Angzi's foul and went to the free throw line. Angzi was a little helpless. He was caught off guard by Parker. He reached out to pull Parker and got a foul. Fortunately, Parker didn't make a layup. The first free throw hit, the point difference became 7 points, the second free throw, the same hit, 8 points difference, the game has started 3 minutes, the 76ers 3-11, 8 points behind the Spurs at home, Angzi back there was a foul last time. For the 76ers, the situation is not optimistic. Tony Parker made 2 free throws. At the beginning of the game, Tony Parker scored 6 points, and Duncan took the remaining 5 points. The Spurs both mastered the overall situation from the beginning of the game. As for the 76ers, Angzi didn't play very well. He only hit 1 3-pointer with 3 shots. However, Angzi was not worried. The game had just begun. He just wanted to find the touch, and the 8-point difference was not counted. What? So, back to the offensive end, Angzi is still resolutely executing a personal offense. This time he did not continue to play without the ball, but chose to attack with the ball. After holding the ball on the outside, Angzi leaned back against Kawhi Leonard, which looked like a singles posture. So Danny Green rushed over, but before Danny Green appeared next to an 11 slammed, and then turned around quickly, squeezing Kawhi Leonard and rushed inside. Kawhi Leonard turned to entangle Angzi, but he just ran 2 steps and banged into Pau Gasol, who had been standing near the free throw line. Angzi stepped away from Kawhi Leonard, facing Duncan's defense and throwing successfully, scoring 2 points. The score has also become 5-11, and the 76ers are still 6 points behind. Then, in the Spurs' offensive round, Angzi's defense gradually became tougher, and Parker's breakthrough was hit hard. Parker could only pass the ball, but after passing the ball, there was a mistake and the ball was cut off by the fast-handed Jack Lauder. An 11 turned around and started a fast break. Rushing to the front court, leaning on Parker who returned to the defense, received a pass from Jack Lauder, made a 3-step layup and scored 2 more points. The Wachovia Arena was cheering everywhere. It was 7-11 and the 76ers were only 4 points behind. Seeing that the difference was gradually narrowing, the 3 commentators of Turner Sports also changed their minds. They felt that the 76ers were still in this game. There is a chance. The Spurs' offense still started from Tony Parker, and it was a high-position double pick-and-roll coordination. Angzi chose to delay Parker, and Parker still passed the basketball to the high-position Duncan. On the other side, Danny Green came quickly, and it seemed that Duncan was about to cooperate with Green again. So Gasol moved half a step, preparing to delay Danny Green's shot. But Duncan found an opportunity, suddenly turned around to hit the basket, rushed into the basket to attract Asik's supplementary defense, scored the ball to the other side, assisted split, and completed the layup. At 7:13, the point difference returned to 6 points. The 76ers' offense was still Angzi holding the ball. Angzi played very decisively. There was no change at all. It went straight to a crushing breakthrough, broke into the inside, hit the Spurs and was caught off guard. After rushing into the penalty area, the bottom corner defended Jack Law. Danny Green from Germany immediately packed up. Angzi didn't mean to defend the layup with a double-double team. A cross was passed to Jack Lauder in the corner. The corner position, the three-pointer in this position, whether it is Jack Lauder or James Anderson, is very sure. After all, this is the position where they often shot, and it is also the most hidden and easiest position on the court to aim at the basket. So, Jack Lauder raised the knife and dropped, and the basketball went into the net with a resounding sound. The goal is scored. At 1:13, in a blink of an eye, the 76ers narrowed the difference to 3 points. Then, with the Spurs attack, Tony Parker gave Danny Green a hand-to-hand cooperation, and then ran to the other side. After Danny Green received the ball, with the help of this hand-to-hand cooperation, Chia broke through towards the inside. After attracting the defense, Danny Green passed the ball into the penalty area. Thiago splitter layup against Asik's defense, did not score, but caused Asik's foul. Asik fouled twice, Brett Brown was helpless, and while Split was on the free throw line, he replaced Asik and replaced Cole Aldridge. Thiago Split made 2 free throws and the point difference became 5 points. In the next round of the 76ers, an 11 rushed to the front court and directly returned a three-pointer. For several rounds in a row, Anzi hit the Spurs by surprise and caught the Spurs by surprise. Kawhi Leonard did not expect that Anzi would make a three-pointer in the last round. Anzi made a wave of quick breakthroughs, and Kawhi Leonard prevented Anzi's breakthrough. As a result, Anzi made a three-pointer, which many people did not expect. The basketball hits the net with a scream and hits a three-pointer. Wachovia Arena suddenly burst into cheers like a tsunami. Scarlett on the sidelines jumped up, Abby and Jeff Hornacek also stood up and raised their hands. A three-pointer. 13-15, 2 points difference, although the 76ers are still 2 points behind, but in fact, judging from this score, the two teams are already at the same starting line. The Spurs' next round of offense began, they played more cautiously. The 7-0 and even 11:3 advantages of the opening game are almost gone. The Spurs have been playing very reasonable, but they have become more careful and more careful. It's reasonable. Tony Parker passed the basketball in and gave it to Duncan. After Duncan shook Gasol away, he put the basketball into the hoop and scored another 2 points. 13-17, 4 points difference. Anzi rushed to the front court with the ball, and he wanted to make a three-pointer. Kawhi Leonard had been prepared for a long time, and rushed towards Anzi. Anzi suddenly received the ball, leaned forward, and threw the basketball toward the hoop against Kawhi Leonard. Beep. The referee blew his whistle, and Anzi committed a foul by Kawhi Leonard. The basketball flew to the hoop. When the referee blew his whistle, he actually got into it. The ball is scored. 3-1. Anzi is awesome. Countless fans watching the game shouted loudly. This goal is scored. Anzi scored a 3-1, and this goal Anzi is going towards the goal of equalizing the score. Really strong. After being beaten by the Spurs at 7-0 in the opening game, Anzi exploded. Among the 76ers' 16 points, all the points are related to Anzi, 15 points, Anzi scored 13 points, and another time. Assist. If you make a penalty, it will be 14 points. Too strong. The Spurs can't prevent him at all. Anzi walked to the free throw line amidst the cheers of the audience and executed an additional penalty. At this time, the score of the two teams was 16-17, and the 76ers were only 1 point away to tie the score. Anzi took a deep breath and gently pushed the basketball towards the hoop. Simply and neatly, the penalty was added. Anzi hit 3-1 and the score was evened. The Spurs' small advantage in the opening game is now gone. It's really hard to say who wins and who loses in this game. The 76ers have made a great adjustment. Anzi scored consecutively and the score has evened. After the score equalized, the Spurs called a timeout. Vich replaced the fresh team of substitutes and used plenty of stamina to open up the gap with the 76ers. On the 76ers side, Anzi also increased his passing. He had a foreboding that his stamina might not be enough for this game, so he has been it's definitely not enough to shoot by yourself. Sometimes you still need to pass a pass to allocate your physical energy reasonably. In the second half of the first quarter, the Spurs gradually took advantage of the deeper bench depth. Soon, at the end of the first quarter, the 76ers trailed the Spurs by 4 points. The Spurs had the ball. They attacked the front court and then handed the ball to Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard got a chance to play a post, and the defender he had to face was Jack Laughter. Jack Laughter was very clever in defense. After Kawhi Leonard's first lean, he suddenly withdrew his chair, leaped forward and snatched the basketball from Kawhi Leonard. Steal. The offense and defense were switched instantly, with 8 seconds left in the first quarter. Anzi rushed to the front court, immediately received a pass from Jack Lauder, and shot a chasing three-pointer in the front court. Swish, hum. With a three-pointer hit, the first quarter of the game also ended. Angzi shot a chasing three-pointer, ending the first quarter of the game. At 31-32, the 76ers fell behind by 1 point in the first quarter, and the game was still under the control of the 76ers. However, at the beginning of the second quarter, Angzi left the field to rest, and the Spurs substitute was once again powerful. In the opening game, the two teams scored 2 points and 2 points. Soon, the Spurs defended the 76ers' offense and counterattacked with a fast break, widening the gap to 3 points. Then came a wave of offensive and defensive, and the difference continued to expand. By the middle of the second quarter, when Angzi played again, the Spurs were already 6 points ahead of the 76ers. The 6-point difference is not too big, and the situation is not too bad, so after Angzi played, he was still very calm. The goal of Angzi's appearance is to equalize the score before halftime. In this game, the 76ers can't tolerate the slightest mistake. In the first round after Angzi played, he held the ball against Danny Green. Compared to Leonard, Danny Green puts less defensive pressure on Angzi. So as soon as he got the ball, an 11 flew into the offense. With a simple cross step, an 11 used his physical advantage to press Danny Green and rushed in. In recent games, Angzi has begun to frequently use his physical advantage. It is not that Angzi's fake moves are not good enough, but Angzi feels that instead of doing so many fake moves, it is better to play fast and press in with your body. This idea is also correct. If Angzi uses various fake moves to shake Danny Green's defense, perhaps the Spurs double team has already arrived. And now, Angzi simply broke through and pressed Danny Green into the inside, and the Spurs could not keep up with the defense. When Duncan blocked in front of Angzi and wanted to prevent Angzi's breakthrough, Angzi suddenly exploded, 1+1, throwing away Danny Green, rushing to the basket, and violently waved his arm. There was a loud noise. Angzi slammed the basketball into the hoop. "OU by karma." Angzi rushed into the inside dunk. He is too strong. The point difference has shrunk to 4 points. Let's take a look at the 76ers defense. With more than 4 minutes left in the second quarter, the 76ers want to equalize the remaining 4 points before halftime, and they must guard against the Spurs offense for several rounds. Therefore, Angzi topped the ball in front of Manu Ginobili, and the two old friends met. Manu Ginobili naturally made a few fake moves in a row and looked like he wanted to play singles, but in fact Manu Ginobili didn't mean to play singles at all. He just wanted to find a chance. Soon, Danny Green made a ball-free screen for Boris Diaw on the inside. The flexible Fat Diaw rushed to the outside, received a pass from Ginobili, and directly shot a three-pointer. The Spurs played very simple, but very effective. Diaw's position on the court is a center, but he is a center with 3 points. As a result, Cole Aldridge can't defend it, and Francisco Garcia's defense is not in place, allowing Diaw to get an open position. 3 points chance. With a slur, a three-pointer was scored. This ball turned Angzi's previous strong dunk into a futile effort. The point difference was expanded to 7 points. Said to continue, the 76ers seemed to be unable to guard the Spurs offense, because the Spurs used a lineup that makes people unable to defend in the second quarter, the perimeter quicker Mills and the older and more demon Ginobili, the small forward position is the three-pointer Danny Green, the inside is the flexible dead fat Boris Diaw, plus the guard of the basket Duncan. This is a lineup where everyone has a range, plus Ginobili who can always create magic and Danny Green who can always make three-pointers. The 76ers become difficult to parry on the defensive end, so naturally it's normal. As a result, after Angzi played, the 76ers only slowed down their backwardness. After halftime, the 76ers were still behind the Spurs by 9 points. After 9 points at halftime, the situation looks a bit unoptimistic, but the optimistic 76ers fans who always believe that Anzi can do miracles still have hope for this game. Anzi felt that the situation was not good. He was overstretched in the last battle. He felt that he was not able to play the game just after halftime. Anzi frowned and used the toilet time to enter the system space during the intermission. After entering the system space, there was a row of attribute tables for physical fitness. Sure enough, Anzi's physical fitness was almost exhausted. Anzi thought for a while. He suddenly felt that maybe the glory pool was not so good. The last time he ran out of 5 glory pools, Dongja suffered a back spasm injury. This time I consumed 1, and there was a sense of disengagement in the second game. Anzi feels that perhaps there is a problem with this glory pool. After thinking about it carefully, Anzi clicked on the attribute table of the physical condition, but suddenly a reminder popped up. To be continued. 8 more exciting novels. Welcome to Visit Everyone's Reading Academy. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen Sanbuletnji. Chapter 583. Ding, the host's physical condition is not good. Do you consume 1/2 of the glory pool to replenish the physical energy to 100%? Replenish physical fitness. Anzi hesitated for a moment, considering the second half of the game, and if this game loses, there will be no 7th game. Anzi gritted his teeth and chose yes. Yes. After the system flashed a burst of white light, the physical status bar was filled with red bars. Anzi suddenly felt the abundance of physical energy all over his body, and seemed to be full of strength. Half a glory pool in exchange for a half match can consume endless physical energy. Anzi feels that it is still worth it, but if it really wants it to work, Anzi still needs to use his personal performance in the second half to help the team fight for this. The victory of the game. If this game is not won, how many glory pools Anzi uses will be a loss. And if this game is won, Anzi will make money no matter how much glory pool he spends. During the intermission, the 76ers were 9 points behind, and Brett Brown naturally had to make arrangements. Anzi took the initiative to ask for a fight. He was not going to rest in the second half. He was going to play the second half and make good use of the 100% physical stamina he got in half of the glory pool. At the beginning of the second half of the game, the main players of the two teams all appeared. The start was the Spurs' possession of the ball. Tony Parker, who took a break for most of the first half, attacked the 76ers from the very beginning of the game. Facing Anzi's defense, Tony Parker used the pick and roll to accelerate one step and pass Anzi. When Anzi bypassed the screen and rushed over again, Tony Parker suddenly stopped and fought back against Anzi's turn and threw the basketball to the hoop. With a scream, Tony Parker raised his right hand to shoot the ball. The commentator shouted, "Tony Parker's fast offense, the emergency stop jumper succeeded, and the difference came to double digits." With the 76ers offense, Anzi received the basketball. He didn't hesitate to control the ball to the top of the arc, facing Kawhi Leonard's defense. Facing Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green, who was about to move around, Anzi did not make any changes, dribbled the ball directly from the hip, and then forcibly accelerated, rushing in from Kawhi Leonard's right hand. Double teaming, the field suddenly shouted. Kawhi Leonard gritted his teeth and wrapped Anzi from the back. At this time, Anzi's stamina was in a state of fullness, and he did not stingy with his own stamina at the moment. An abrupt stop, while Kawhi Leonard slammed the brakes and turned back, Anzi dribbled the ball from the other side. Suddenly changed direction and accelerate past. Anzi passed. Kawhi Leonard failed to haunt him. Anzi rushed into the inside. Kawhi Leonard was left behind by him, and Duncan, who was inside, had no idea that Anzi would rush in so directly, at such a fast speed. He had no time to make up for it, so he watched. Angzi made a big stride and rushed to the basket. Then he stood up high and soared towards the basket. With a bang, a heavy dunk, an 11 fell from the basket and patted his chest heavily. At this moment, Angzi seemed to be somewhat unstoppable. After all, from the moment he took the ball to rush into the penalty area to dunk, a series of actions were very crisp and quick. This ball directly inspired the 76ers fighting spirit, and the score difference became 9 points. The 76ers they have set their goal on equalizing the score. And then, the Spurs attacked. Tony Parker also unimaginably showed his own singles. In the face of Angzi's defense, the Spurs once again opened up, giving Tony Parker a singles space. For this ball, after Tony Parker passed the screen, he repeated his skills and used an emergency stop jumper. An 11 slapped his horse behind him, slapped his back, and fanned the basketball. With a beep, the referee blew his whistle and blew a thug in. Angzi fouled. An 11 did not argue. This shot did look like he did a good shot, but the referee's penalty was no problem. An 11 did hit Parker's hand. After all, it's quite difficult to block from the rear. Tony Parker walked to the free throw line and made 2 free throws. The point difference widened to 10 points. As the game continued, Angzi glanced at the scoreboard and rushed to the front court with the ball. The Spurs still didn't dare to double-team Angzi without thinking, so they once again let Angzi face Kawhi Leonard, only to rush to double-team when Angzi broke through. But this ball Angzi didn't mean to break through. Although he made a fake move, after a cross step, it seemed that he was going to rush towards the inside. But after he shook Kawhi Leonard away, he made a sudden step backward and shot a jumper just outside the three-point line. Retreat step jumper, Angzi's unique stunt. This ball was completely thrown away after Kawhi Leonard. The goal is naturally beyond doubt. Only heard a scream. After the clear wiping sound, Angzi scored a three-pointer. Goal scored. 3 points. Angzi scored 5 points in the second half. 7 points left. Tony Parker didn't play in singles anymore for the Spurs offense, but the ball was initiated from Parker. After an accelerated cut, he passed the ball out and passed a chance. Kawhi Leonard shook Jack Lauder. On his defense, he made a mid-range shot, and the basketball also got into the net. The game continued, and the point difference was only 9 points away. Angzi saw hope, and now, there is an entire glory pool left in his hands. In this game, he hopes not to use this glory pool as much as possible. Therefore, in the third quarter, the 76ers must step up their counter-attack, try to equalize the score before the end of the third quarter, and then spend a whole quarter of the fourth quarter to secure the victory of the game. The game continued, and the 76ers still got the ball from Angzi. Seeing Angzi scored 5 points in the second half, the Spurs are also preparing to strengthen the restriction on Angzi, so when Angzi just put on a singles posture, Danny Green rushed over from the other side. Angzi didn't even think about it, and threw the basketball behind Danny Green and passed it to James Anderson. Danny Green immediately turned around to make up for defense. But in such a moment of effort, Angzi suddenly squeezed Kawhi Leonard and rushed in empty-handed. After throwing off Leonard a step, Angzi even raised his hand and asked for the ball. James Anderson didn't pause at all, just passed an advance amount and passed the ball in. Angzi catches the ball, dashes for a step, clanging, and another heavy dunk. Wachovia Arena gave out crazy cheers. Angzi scored 2 more points. Just 2 minutes into the third quarter, the 76ers had already reduced the score to 7 points in an excellent state where Angzi scored 7 points in a row. Then on the defensive end, Angzi further increased his running on the defensive end, broke through his defense at Tony Parker, and then passed the ball to Kawhi Leonard who cut behind Angzi. Kawhi Leonard jumped. When he started, he was ready to pull up dunks. But at the moment Kawhi Leonard received the pass, Angzi intercepted the ball, just like grabbing the ball, and grabbed the basketball straight away. Steal, With a shout from the commentary, an 11 snatched the basketball from Won Jun. Accelerated for a while and rushed to the front. He slammed Tony Parker's back defense, banged, and dunked for the third time. Ang Zi scored 9 points in a row. At this moment, he has completely entered a runaway state. The most important thing is that Ang Zi scored 9 points in a row, including a block and a steal. In the first 3 minutes of the third quarter, the difference was reduced to 5 points. As the game continued, the Spurs offense finally scored again. This time it was Duncan. He made a shot in the interior, but the chance was still created by Parker. It can only be said that from the second half, the Spurs could not prevent Ang Zi, but the Spurs over there, Parker's runaway also made the 76ers defense a headache. The strongest part of veterans lies in their experience. Ang Zi's single defense is indeed strong, but Tony Parker's changing pace of possession, even pick-and-roll screens that suddenly appear from nowhere, can always make Ang Zi appear on the defensive end. Mistakes, this allows the Spurs to always tear open the 76ers defense, as long as it is not too bad, they can always score. With the 76ers offense, the Spurs dare not let Ang Zi play singles anymore. Ang Zi has scored 9 points in a row, playing every ball quickly, and it seems that the Spurs can't stand it at all. Therefore, with this ball, the Spurs made a change to their defense. They chose to start directly from outside the three-point line to pinch Ang Zi. Ang Zi was not strong, he directly chose to pass the ball. With this pass, Danny Green immediately retreated, and Ang Zi tried to repeat the same trick to catch the ball through a sudden empty-handed run. But this time the Spurs had been on guard. When Ang Zi reached out for the ball and James Anderson gave it out without hesitation, Kawhi Leonard jumped out and shot the basketball out of the air. Then he turned around and directly controlled the basketball. Kawhi Leonard. He steals, the commentator yelled. Ang Zi was also a little surprised. He seemed to forget that Kawhi Leonard was also a master of steals, and even his ability to steal this hand came from Kawhi Leonard. But Kawhi Leonard's quick response to this goal directly grabbed the basketball. When Ang Zi turned around to chase, he was already somewhat unable to catch up. Kawhi Leonard rushed to the front court and made a direct dunk, pulling the point difference back to 9 points. The Spurs seem to have adjusted back. As an experienced team, they have shown their old stamina in a timely manner. The game continued, and after the Spurs adjusted their state, the game seemed a little anxious again. The 76ers relied on Ang Zi's offensive deterrence to score, while the Spurs relied on the hole to keep scoring. The third quarter quickly reached the final stage. Ang Zi scored another 17 points in a single quarter, but it was of no use. With less than 1 minute left in the third quarter, the 76ers were still 5 points behind the Spurs. However, the 76ers had already won 4 points in the third quarter, which was the credit of Ang Zi's explosion in the second half. On the last goal of the third quarter, an 11 made a mid-range shot. This mid-range shot made his personal scoring in this game once again broke the 40-point mark and reached 41 points. Ang Zi continued his crazy in the finals. It's his own madness. This goal helped the 76ers reduce the point difference to 2 points. At the beginning of the fourth quarter, the difference between the two teams was negligible. Although the 76ers are still behind, the 2-point gap means they are almost the same. Completed the task of equalizing the score in the third quarter. The match in the fourth quarter was naturally the time for the decisive battle, but an 11 suddenly felt nothing in his heart. He took advantage of the break time between the festivals and took another look at the inside of the system. If the difference cannot be opened, perhaps Ang Zi will grit his teeth again and consume the last glory pool. Sure enough, in the fourth quarter, the 76ers suddenly fell into a downturn. The offensive end, including Ang Zi, missed 2 goals. After being hit by the Spurs at 14:4 in the opening game, the score of the two teams became 97:85, and only the last 8 minutes of the game were left. The 76ers suddenly fell behind the Spurs by 12 points. The sudden collapse of the fourth quarter forced Brett Brown to call out consecutive timeouts. At this time, he had called out the third consecutive timeout. The number of timeouts in the 76ers' hands was also almost exhausted. With 8 minutes left in the game, the 76ers were 12 points behind, and people began to dislike the 76ers again. After all, the 76ers couldn't stop falling in the fourth quarter. Anzi also made 2 of 4 shots and got all 4 points from the 76ers. The situation is obviously not good. If this downward trend continues, the 76ers will definitely lose the game. The league staff in the arena aisle is busy again. Regardless of whether the Spurs win or not, from the current situation alone, the Spurs are indeed going to win, and they must make preparations in advance. The game continues. If the Spurs' 12-point lead cannot ensure their victory with the last 8 minutes of the game left, then, the Spurs continued to score. Although the 76ers also recovered their state through 3 consecutive timeouts, the 12-point difference could not be narrowed, and the game was played until more than 4 points remained. By the time, the 76ers were still 14 points behind. The situation is obviously very bad. Even the 76ers fans do not believe that the team can complete the comeback, but they are still on the sidelines and loudly support the team. From last year's lottery game to this year's accidental entry into the postseason, the game, accidentally defeating the Heat, accidentally rushing to the finals, and even accidentally hitting the 6th game with the Spurs, these are unexpected accidents for the 76ers and his fans. They will only be proud of the team. At Turner Sports Commentary, Charles Barkley sighed and shook his head. The 76ers are going to lose. Charles Barkley is also considered one of the 76ers legends. Now that his home team is about to lose to the Spurs, Charles Barkley is also in a bad mood. On the field, Anzi was still hesitating. The point difference fluctuated between 12 and 14 points. Anzi didn't know if he should have used up the last glory pool, and rationally told him that even if the glory pool was used up, 76 at most people will only win this game and lose the next one. Because from these 2 uses, the glory pool definitely has sequelae, and this time the glory pool is exhausted, and the next game, the 76ers are not in full condition. Anzi, it is absolutely difficult to win from the Spurs. Therefore, Anzi hesitated whether he should waste this glory pool in vain. Shaquille O'Neal of the commentary said, "Unless Anzi reproduces the miracle of 3 minutes and 22 minutes, the Spurs have won." Super Role Player. Author, Yuen Sanbuletinji. Chapter 584. No, you can't lose the home game. Anzi gritted his teeth and made a decision. The last glory pool must be used. With 12 points remaining, the last 3 minutes of the game, that is, the time for Anzi to open the glory pool, there is less than 1 minute left. The 2 teams each have an offensive time, which is the Spurs' time. Offensive round. 12 points difference, the Spurs naturally hope to expand the difference, the 76ers naturally want to narrow the difference. Especially Anzi, he didn't want to be like the last game. Even with the bonus of the glory pool, he almost failed to win the game, so now he must minimize the 76ers' point difference as much as possible. As he turned around to start defending, Anzi clapped his hands to cheer his teammates. The 76ers also showed a scene of their unity and fighting spirit. The defensive end suddenly increased the intensity of the defense and continued to rush to make up the defense. The Spurs' ball was really defended by the 76ers. Tony Parker rushed into the penalty area. After being blocked by Anzi, he split the ball to the other side. With little offensive time left, Danny Green took another step, but the subsequent shooting was directly interfered by Jack Lauder. "Come down." With a bang, the basketball bounced out. Anzi is like a missile, it bounces accurately, and the air force suppresses everyone and grabs the rebound. Time is running out, An 11 rushed to the front court with the ball, beckoning Pau Gasol, who also flew down the fast break, to give himself a pick and roll. In this way, after a solid screen, an 11 stepped forward and shot the basketball in his hands. 3 points. If this ball is scored, the difference may be reduced to single digits. In the eyes of countless people in Wachovia Arena, the basketball went into the rim with a scream after spinning half a circle in the air. Angzi is strong. A three-pointer. Beautiful. The points difference has been reduced to 9 points. Angzi hit a three-pointer. The 76ers seem to have regained hope of winning. After more than 3 minutes and a 9-point gap, it seems that the Spurs have not yet secured the victory, and the 76ers still have a chance. Even Angzi moved his mind to see if he could not use the glory pool first to see if he could complete the comeback without resorting to the glory pool. But soon, the Spurs turned around and fought back, and they actually returned a three-pointer. It was Kawhi Leonard who made the three-pointer. He exploded, directly against Jack Lauder's defense, and made a three-pointer. The point difference is back to 12 points. After just one round, the tone of the commentators changed again. The Spurs scored a three-pointer. The point difference returned to 12 points. If the 76ers can't prevent the Spurs from attacking, the 76ers still can't avoid a loss in this game. Indeed, the biggest problem for the 76ers right now is not their offense, because there is Angzi on the offensive end, not to mention, at least an offensive intensity above the average level can be guaranteed. But now the biggest problem for the 76ers is their defense. Angzi's defense is very strong, and Jack Lauder is also a single defense player above the perimeter level. But for other players, the defense is really a bit poor, and the Spurs have already played historical offenses in the past few seasons. Facing the 76ers' unsystematic defense, they can naturally score easily. An 11 frowned. He had a fluke mentality just now, that he could complete a comeback without opening the glory pool. But now, it looks like he has to use up the remaining glory pool. 76ers offensive round. The game came to the critical time of 3 minutes. At this time, there are already fans on the sidelines talking about the miracle of Angzi's last game in 3 minutes and 22 minutes. There are 3 minutes left in the game. It would be great if this game was as good as the last one. On the field, Angzi has already opened the glory pool, and with 3 minutes left, he will run away again. Compared with the previous game, the 76ers are a little bit behind in this game, 2 points less, so relatively speaking, Angzi's task is lighter. He needs to smooth out in 3 minutes. 12 points difference, and complete the reverse. A glory pool helped Angzi complete a 200% bonus, and a violent breath came. An 11 glanced at the basket, the whole person's temperament became resolute. Suddenly, without any false action, he directly relied on his body, pressing Kawhi Leonard and rushed in. This goal, Angzi's goal, is not to score, but to use an absolute rolling goal to make the fans in the audience go crazy, make the atmosphere warm, and let everyone regain hope for the 76ers. Therefore, after Angzi squeezed Kawhi Leonard, it exploded in an instant, just like Bolt ran in the final stage of a 100-meter dash, rushing in like lightning. Then, he stepped on a step within the free throw line and bounced. This time, Angzi bounced higher than any previous time. All the Spurs defensive players could only look up at Angzi, watching Angzi unstoppable rushing towards the basket. Because no one was defending, Kawhi Leonard, the nearest one, could not jump up either. He could only watch Angzi rush to the hoop behind him. Therefore, Angzi in the air directly came to a 360-degree big turn, and added a crotch hand changing action. The audience suddenly exclaimed. The big windmill turning around 360-degree and changing hands under the hips. This is an action that will only be used in the dunk contest. As the on-site commentator shouted loudly and banged loudly, an 11 had exhausted all his strength and smashed the basketball into the hoop. Before Angzi shouted excitedly, the fans on the sidelines did not react, cheering wildly. With a crash, the glass on the backboard suddenly shattered and fell to the ground. The fans in the audience gave an exclamation first, even Abby stood up involuntarily. She was worried that Angzi would be hit by the broken glass. However, Angzi had already subconsciously blocked his face with his arm, so the broken glass did not affect Angzi. After seeing Angzi landing safely, the Wachovia arena burst. All the 76ers fans stood up and cheered crazy. This may be the most powerful actual dunk I have ever seen. One step within the free throw line, 36-0 turn around, crotch change hands. Then dunk. Actually dunked the basket. Yes, with this dunk, Angzi actually dunked the basket. How much effort did he use? The game was inevitably suspended and the backboard was shattered. Obviously, the on-site staff needed to change the backboard, otherwise the game would not go on. On the field, the Spurs players showed a wry smile. This wave of offense, Angzi's explosive power, was really a bit scary, and all of them failed to react. At this time, Angzi was celebrating with a high five with his teammates, especially when they met Jack Lauder, a half-orc with a long corn braid. The two came to celebrate with a chest bump. Seeing 76, that's how people's aura is punched out. Victory.